Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto created a criminal organization. When Naruto Uzumaki's dream of becoming Hokage is seemingly stolen from him, he discovers a new path. One even more difficult and harder to reach. With a family of his own making, he will take the world by storm, showing them that rogues and outcasts of the world can stand at the top. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 20, Homefront Reunions Part 1. There's a saying his sensei always said to him about money. Something that conflicted with the 3 prohibitions of shinobi. Well, not so much a saying, rather a mentality to solve issues in unique and dynamic ways. Which translated to reaching into one's own pocket, pulling out a ton of bills, and then throwing it at the problem until it goes away. A skill he stated as being one of his greatest powers. Naruto was beginning to think his grandfather was onto something. With 98 million ryo at his disposal, Naruto had the urge to cause some trouble. Just to do the same was something that was oddly satisfying about it. "Will that be all, my lord?" the exchange officer asked. "Perhaps we could interest you in other investment opportunities." The man was standing in front of the door, blocking their passage from leaving with 6 briefcases filled with cash. He had been on board for taking the gold, but thought he could wiggle his way out by giving them shares or different commodities in exchange. Both of which required having a fixed address in order to become profitable. Criminal rule number 8, never stay in one place too long. The moment you start getting all your mail, you may as well be living in prison. Yup. Better to just take the mouth-watering and untraceable stacks of money instead of investing in some technology company or whatever. Ignoring the man, Naruto waved Hokushin over, whispering nonsense into his ear. He had to give him credit, the assassin was better and more willing to go along with his schemes. Not that the others were adverse to it, but there was a nuance to selling a persona. That's why he chose Hokushin and Sazanami for this. They fit the part for their little ruse. "What? How dare you?" Hokushin shouted. "You dare assume to know what the son of the land of T's feudal lord wants?" Yes, he was back to that old ruse. It was a safety measure. Coming in with that much gold would raise all kinds of alarms. With nice dress clothes and 2 tough-looking men who could only be seen as bodyguards, one would only assume the person with that much gold was a noble. So with the commodities license he got from the Kotabami gold mine and a well-placed story as to their identity, they were making more money than Naruto would make in 10 years as a leaf shinobi. He was feeling really stupid for not striking out on his own sooner. The bespectacled exchange officer scrambled. He looked like he was about to throw up. I am terribly sorry. It's just we never have given out so much money before." "Yes, because you've never had so much gold in one place before," Hokushin assessed. He jabbed his finger into the officer's chest. "That means your office can use that gold for other investments. I couldn't imagine a great nation like the Land of Fire wouldn't have a countless number of businesses that need gold." Yes, you're correct." Naruto let out a groan, looking disinterested in the conversation. He motioned for Sazanami, whispering into his ear. Again it was just nonsense. Playing it up for the commoners. The swordsman seemed to enjoy this scam as well. In fact, he seemed to be in a better mood these days. Not surprising given his vast, mainly scary, amount of improvement. Of all the things he would have expected of someone who barely knew what chakra natures were was for him to use it so prominently without any sort of training. Wind style in particular was not an easy feat to accomplish. Only through his use of shadow clones on top of his meditation training was he able to use it so easily. Sazanami had watched him train while they were in the Land of Wind. As far as Naruto knew, that was all the swordsman used as a reference to use it himself. It was frightening and amazing in equal amounts. "Yes, you're absolutely right, my lord. We should definitely go to the capital and file a complaint against these rude fellows." Sazanami placed his hand over his katana. "Perhaps we should settle this ourselves after such disrespectful behavior." The exchange officer's face turned green as grass. Shaking in his fancy leather shoes as Hokushin and Sazanami played up the dutiful protectors. As fun as it would be to watch a grown man wet his pants, there were actual things they needed to do. Naruto walked up to the exchange officer, gingerly waving his hand to wordlessly motion him to move out of the way. My humblest apologies. Thank you for your patronage, my lord, he said, bowing at the hips as he shuffled out of the way. Smirking in satisfaction, the three of them exited the exchange office 98 million ryo richer. Outside, Menma, Sasami, and Ranmaru were waiting for them. They were all gathered now, and for the first time since, well, ever, they had a sizable amount of money. Money that was needed to order to move up to the next level. Sadly, he knew the others weren't 100% on board with what he wanted. He would just need to play his cards right. And to cheat. Naruto darted his eyes around, keeping his head dipped low and head even lower, trying to appear paranoid. Alright everyone, listen up. Now that we have the money we need, we'll need to move quickly. Like clockwork, the others also became on edge at his sudden attitude change. They squatted low, trying to keep out of sight. Ranmaru tugged his sleeve. If you want, I can use my powers to see if anyone is watching us. He smiled at how earnest their newest addition was. He was so cute, but using his powers now would blow his cover. No, that's alright, Ranmaru-chan. I just need you all to follow me and try to be as stealthy as possible. There's a safe place we can to sort out our next move. Naruto proceeded with his plan after everyone gave a silent nod of approval. In all honesty, he hadn't a clue whether anyone was watching them or not. He didn't think anyone would even bother looking for him here of all places. Here being Tanzaku Town. Yes, in the same place he and Pervy Sage had encountered Granny Tsunade several months ago. The same town where he finally used the Rasengan against Kabuto and won the bet against her. It was more than a little nostalgic. Uncomfortably nostalgic at that. Especially when Naruto spotted a divot in the middle of the street. Exactly where Granny had nearly flattened him with one of her punches. Not one of his favorite moments. Of all the people he hoped never to run into anytime soon, it was her. He shivered at the thought. Prison sounded better than dealing with her. Are you alright, Naruto? You look a little pale. Menma said. Yeah, just a little on edge around here. Out of nowhere and for no particular reason, he dived forward across the street, doing a handspring before landed with his back against an adjacent wall. He looked around again before waving for his friends to follow. They didn't seem to have his flair for being stealthy and dramatic. At least the random people standing around gave him a quick applause for the stunt. We're not exactly being stealthy here, kid. SHHH. You want us to get caught? Yeah, I don't think we're doing a great job at that, Sazanami deadpanned as a mother guided her child away from them. The toddler pointing at them with curiosity. Don't worry, they're figments of your imagination, we're close to where we need to be, so we gotta move fast. He pointed towards the end of a side street. There was a shop he had scouted out before they officially arrived here. It had everything they needed. Naruto had already set up an appointment with the owner, even going as far as to remove the sign on the front to throw his friends off. They would have no idea what they were walking into. Creating a shadow clone, he had it hold open the door. Alright everyone, inside quickly. My clone will keep watch just in case. They all huddled in, still on edge to the phantom enemies watching them. Naruto was having a hard time containing his amusement. Following Hokushin at the end, he stopped briefly to whisper to his clone. Block the door and make sure they don't escape. His clone was giggling like a loon. You got it. Have fun in there. Yes, this ruse was quite elaborate and sad. Perhaps even a little mean when he was tricking them all. Naruto felt a twinge of regret, for a few moments, anyway. The build-up was all worth it. Entering into the shop that smelled of linen and lavender. Full-size mirrors and lifelike mannequins stood around the edges of the walls with an arrangement of colored cloth. Some displays were already set up to show the latest trends in finery and dress wear. This store was the high-end and most exclusive to all those but the super wealthy. It would be here that they dressed themselves for battle. Trying to convince the row of unimpressed, confused and curious faces was up next. Sazanami, with the unimpressed face, crossed his arms. Really, kid? Naruto shrugged. To be fair, I honestly didn't think you all would fall for that so easily. Naruto-kun? Do we really need to get fancy clothes? Isn't it better to get something functional? Sasami asked confusedly. He let out a long-winded sigh. They just didn't get it. How could they? Being a criminal was more than just a title. More than just doing whatever you wanted. It's a lifestyle. A lifestyle that requires the absolute maximum amount of commitment. It would instill that lesson into all of them. For he was their leader. Naruto put one foot up onto a footstool, placing his head over his heart. Projecting his superior leadership voice. You all need to get with it, he started. We're in the land of fire now. Enemy territory. Belly of the beast. The lion's den. Den of evil. Jaws of death. Everything up until now has been small potatoes. And by God, none of you are remotely ready for the large ones. If we're going to make it, then we'll need to stand by all of my grandfather's crazy rules. Even the ones that make no sense. Sazanami interjected. Especially the ones that make no sense. They're the most important of all. Naruto pointed to Menma. Quick, tell me, what is criminal rule number 1? His blonde friend fumbled. It was. Fail. His finger moved over to the tanned cutie. Sasami, what is rule number 1? Yes, Naruto-kun. Criminal rule number 1, always dress for success. If you want to be successful, then you must appear to be successful. She recited, standing a little straighter than normal. Hands twitching like she was about to salute him. By God, you're amazing. Absolutely correct. We may just survive the Demon Lord's castle yet. We are not the roving band of misfits. We are not like the average riffraff that stands up to the rules of society. Our goal is to be the best, so we need to dress like the best. Yes, I understand, Master. I never thought of it like that before. Your genius knows no bounds. Sazanami coughed. Oh, there are certainly bounds. You can practically reach out and touch them. Naruto sagged. The eldest child always seemed to be the most stubborn as usual. He understood his point. When Noriyuki first got him these clothes, he thought he looked weird and stupid. After so many death-defying battles ranging from the Jinchuriki in the Land of Lightning to Orochimaru and Hoki, he had begun to see his dress clothes as a second skin. Excuse me, but are you the Uzumaki party? A young woman asked. She had mousy black hair tied into a small bun. A small apron with pouches was covering most of her shapely figure. That we are. I hope you can fulfill the order I asked for. She looked a little skeptical. The order itself was no mean feat. It shouldn't be a problem, but it will be expensive. If the estimate my manager said was correct, then it will be close to 20 million ryo. Naruto, are you serious? You're blowing that much on some fancy clothes. I'm sure there are other things we could do with it, Menma stated. That does seem like a lot, Naruto-kun. It was true. The amount wasn't small. In return, though, the price was well worth the cost. Thinking back on when Noriyuki ordered his, if he had known just how incredible the cloth's material was, then he would have begged for an additional set. I beg your pardon, but are you not aware of just what you're ordering? The tailor asked. Her tone was harsh. Understandable to be annoyed at someone who doesn't know the true value of what they're getting. My apologies, miss. I never explained to them that the outfits are made of Sarostrees spider silk. Master, are you serious? I mean, really serious? Hokushin stuttered. Naruto gave a silent nod. Looking on to the others who didn't quite understand what it actually was. Don't be so quick to judge. While my dress clothes don't look like they belong in a fight, I can assure you they are a hell of a lot better than anything you'll find at a blacksmith or shinobi outfitter. That doesn't do it justice, Master. I've heard Sarostrees spider silk is 5 times stronger than steel. MHN. It's more flexible, water-resistant, and helps regulate normal body temperature. Although the best feature is that they are chakra-conductive. Naruto explained. Chakra-conductive? You mean like the Kiba blades? Sazanami asked. He shrugged. His knowledge about all that stuff was practically non-existent. Maybe not to the same degree, but altogether they have held up through all my fights without so much as a loose thread. These clothes may not look combat-worthy, but they'll last me a better part of a decade if I take care of them. Or a few months when I grow out of them, Menma corrected. Regardless, that's the deal here. You'll get fitted for 2 outfits each. Pick and choose what you want. It doesn't matter so long as it's something you could wear to a formal event. You don't care? Sazanami raised an eyebrow. Seemed like you all wanted us in clothes like yours. Oh, it would be nice, Naruto nodded. You especially, Sazanami. Never have I met someone who looked so homeless. But even 1 or 2 of Sensei's friends opted for a more traditional attire rather than a modern suit. So it's your choice. Finishing his spiel on this, he took one of the briefcases and opened it up for the tailor. A cool 20 million ryo in bills were packed evenly into the leather-bound case. This should settle the bill. Yes. Absolutely. Just let me get everything set up and I'll start measuring. Oh, and I heard there was an addition to each outfit. Naruto pulled out a slip of paper, handing it over to the tailor. Yes. I want this sigil made. It will go on the backs of all of our outfits. Yes, of course. With that, she scattered off to the back room. With the order made and payment already set, it left one more matter of housekeeping, the remaining money. He knew none of them really cared for it, but it's not like he was going to start hoarding it all for himself. Fairness was key to motivating those who worked for him. As agreed, the remaining money will be distributed between the 5 of us. Sadly, Hokushin, you're still on intern status, so you'll get half. What about Ranmaru? Menma asked. Naruto looked at the small boy, the curious one, who, for the most part, had been captivated by the mannequins. Upon hearing his name, he turned back to see what they were doing, his cute and wide eyes blinking at them with interest. Sadly, Ranmaru won't be on the payroll until after our next job. Fair is fair. I can give him some mine. It won't be any trouble. Menma, that's nice and all. Truly. I really do hope you actually hold on to some of it this time, just in case of an emergency, although Naruto doubted it with every fiber of his being, but I believe Ranmaru already has his own thoughts on your charity. Ranmaru was adamant when he said this. His usual monotone voice had a more firm and direct tone. I don't want to be carried like I was in the past. I want to do my fair share and get rewarded for my work like everyone else. It was so cute when he sounded so grown up. Naruto gushed. He was proud of Ranmaru for that fact. Wanting to improve was always a worthwhile goal. Sazanami gave a nod of approval, as did Hokushin. Sasami and Menma still looked apprehensive about it. Don't worry, if Ranmaru needs something I'll pay for it, Naruto reassured them, brushing the boy's purple hair with his hand. The small boy smiled at him in response. We'll call it an advance on his first paycheck. Besides that, I want to offer you all a bonus of sorts. A bonus? What do you mean, master? It could be anything really. I mean, if there's something you want, I'll try my best to get it for you. We'll be in town here for a few days until your new clothes are ready. So we'll have the time. Naruto smiled, now realizing there was another rule Noriyuki was adamant on. One that everyone could get behind. They may be in enemy territory, but that didn't mean they couldn't have a little fun while they were here. Things would certainly get interesting. Smelting. Purifying. Forging. Coating. Shaping. Quenching. Polishing. These were the basis for making swords. Time, effort, and dedication. That's what they really were. Weeks went into forging a single blade, putting forth every bit of skill that a bladesmith needed in order to ensure its making was done properly. It was a trade that required focus, concentration, and patience. It was nothing like guzzling down a bowl of ramen. Nor was it supposed to be. Pride. That's what Sazanami Tokichi felt when he crafted a blade. There was satisfaction in doing it, knowing his blade was in the hands of someone putting their life on the line. It was that feeling that filled him when he made his swords, or rather, as he was forging them in his mind. He couldn't simply go through the motions of making a whole sword. It would take too damn long. So instead he broke up the separate actions he would take in the development of making one. Smelting. Purifying. Forging. Coating. shaping, quenching, polishing. They would serve as the basis for his training in harnessing his mind, spirit, and body. In just a few days Sazanami could already see a drastic change in his training results. Polishing stroke. His katana came down against the house-sized boulder in front of him. The inanimate opponent barely shifted as his attack moved through it like a hot knife through butter. At the end of his strike he resheathed his sword as the rock shifted, slamming against the ground. He let his flow of chakra teeter out. A gasp of breath filling his lungs. It had been something he did more often when applying wind chakra to his sword. With regular chakra it was easier. He felt like he could swing it all day without breaking a sweat. After watching the kid try to convert his regular chakra to wind, all without using a hand seal felt like an impossible task. Why don't you just fill it up with air before you go into battle? I don't see why you are making this harder than it has to be. For the same reason you don't buy a sword when you have the skills to make one. Sure, it's easier to just buy it, but having those skills honed is invaluable. Sazanami groaned, palming his face. Feeling like an ignorant asshole thinking back to when the kid was going through this with his Kazuchiha. The gap was painfully glaring now, seeing how the kid still struggled to refill his air cannon without time to convert his chakra. All the while he was twisting and contorting his fingers into those annoying hand seals to get the same effect. Wow, it seems you can't even train without causing a mess, Hokushin's stupid voice mocked. He was returning to the area he had picked to train at. Apparently Naruto had once used this place to master the Rasengan. The place was littered with spiral-shaped cracks and orbular craters. It wasn't just a few either. The rocky terrain looked like something out of a battlefield. Sazanami groaned some more. He had wanted some time to himself to get the hang of his new techniques. This interruption was the last thing he needed. Don't you have something better you could be doing? Of course. Yet, right now there is something else that needs to be discussed. Menma and Sasami didn't quite explain it to my satisfaction. From his robe he pulled out a black book. More specifically, Naruto's black book. Sazanami levied an accusation against the assassin. You mind explaining to me why you have that? As per the master's generosity I asked to be allowed to hold onto it for a short time. The swordsman actually smirked at that. Oh really? I'm surprised you didn't ask to be bumped up from your probationary status. Hokushin twitched. It seemed like he had twisted the knife right where it hurt. I did, the master said we would talk about that some other time, so I asked for this instead. And the kid probably said to give it back after you were done playing with it. Huh. So what's your question then? The assassin flipped to the list of names, thrusting it out like it was something egregious. Is Master Naruto serious about this? Full stop. No hidden agenda in the question. No other build-up to the book's purpose. How he didn't get a straight answer out of Menma and Sasami confused him. What was there to say? It was a list of names, 2 of which were already crossed out. The most recent being Reiga. It wasn't complicated what it was for. But if Sazanami needed to spell it out then he would. You want to know why the kid won't consider bringing you in fully? Well, this is it. You want to join us? Well, this is what we're doing. Feel happy about your decision now. Hokushin jaw tightened. His toes curled trying to process this answer. Whatever reason the former Watari member had when he wormed his way into their group was moot. Whether it was self-serving or not paled in the face of what it meant to follow Naruto. The kid wasn't some clueless brat that was all talk or filled with impossible goals. When you had that amount of talent and ability, then words like becoming the strongest are undeniable. Some of the names on this list. Hokushin breathed a pained sigh. They aren't just some random shinobis or criminals. They're dash. I'm aware of who they are. So is Menma and Sasami. We know that those names include people who possess power and influence that could shift the continent. If we do cross every name off that list, then the outcome will be monumental, Hokushin stated. The assassin sat down on a rock, hunched over trying to keep his sky blue bangs out of his eyes. Do you know what this would take? The resources required? Never in the history of the shinobi world has anyone attempted to take down so many of the world's most powerful people. You're right. It would require strength and power unlike the world has ever seen, Sazanami replied. Can you really doubt Naruto after what you've seen him do? He is only half our age, so I can only imagine how strong he'll be once he reaches his prime. Not just him but Sasami, Menma, and now Ranmaru too. Why do you think we've been training so hard? We all have our own goals, and doing this, he tapped the book in Hokushin's hands, is how we'll measure our strength. It seems like every name on that list cares more about power and prestige than people. Monsters that are better off taken down or killed. So I feel it's a win-win for everyone else. Monsters. Probably, but don't assume they are all the same. Hokushin shook his. Not all of them care for the same things. I only recognize some of these names by reputation. However. The assassins paused, face straining as a bead of sweat rolled down his face. I've only ever encountered one group on this list. Nearly lost my life to them. He flipped to the first page. His finger traced to the bottom where it was written clearly. Nakazaru Troop. The Watari only considered settling down when we were left with little options. We had twice the number in men until we encountered them. They had been hired by the Hidden Star Village to take back something we stole. We never even saw them coming when they came after us. Even then we saw only their shadows. The ones that tried to fight back, died instantly. The Nakazaru, they are one of the most infamous group of mercenaries with a single specialty, hunter shinobi. There are even rumors they nearly killed the Raikage. From what Naruto explained, or rather, inferred, was that the list basically went from most dangerous to least dangerous through the 5 pages. The fact this mercenary troop was written on the bottom of the first page meant they would be a serious threat to deal with. It was hard to gather the scope of just how strong they actually were. Reiga, for instance, was only on the 3rd page. Compared to Gosenkyuji, on the 5th, then it made sense when comparing the two. He gripped his sword, holding up the blade to his face. Things were different now. He swore that to himself. Even his past. That's why he even went as far as to give his sword its own name. A bit late after so many years, but it symbolized its commitment to change. His Daigara katana would be the basis for vanquishing any monster that came their way. No matter how dangerous they were. As I said, it doesn't matter. It just means we'll need to train that much harder, then won't we? If you truly want to be one of us, that will include you as well. We'll need to rely on one another and put our personal feelings aside. So despite being a total pain in the ass, you actually came through with Ranmaru. Sazanami, beyond his normal reasoning and better judgment, actually extended his hand. Hokushin looked at him for a moment. He was sure the assassin was shocked that he was extending his hand. Even more strange that the assassin looked like he was about to reach out and grab it. Right before the huffy bastard snorted and swatted it away. I don't need your validation. For Master Naruto's sake, I will help him reach his goal. But that doesn't make you and I friends. You may have grown stronger through the Master's help, but soon I will be his second in command. He only rolled his eyes at such an obvious response. Leave it to such a pompous man to keep up this foolish notion of rank in their little group. Whatever you say. Now that you mention it, there is something that might help me become even stronger. Since I answered your question, I think you owe me one now. Oh, and why should I answer anything? Hokushin huffed. Of course the assassin wasn't pleased to hear that he was already trying to go beyond his strength. After his demonstration with Wind Chakra, the blue-haired man had been eyeing him with more scrutiny than before. Because you claim to want to help Naruto, so helping those who are also supporting the kid also supports him, correct? He smiled as the logic wormed its way into Hokushin's head. The irritation shown as his own words were thrown back into his face. Fine. But you have to answer one more question of mine first. Just make it quick. The assassin's tone suddenly shifted again. There was an awkwardness to him as he shifted in his spot. During the fight with Reiga, he called Master Naruto something. I was barely conscious at the time, but it sounded familiar. The swordsman paused, recalling those last moments that Reiga spoke. He did indeed call the kid a strange name. The kid's reply was even stranger. Like some hidden meaning between the two. Sazanami figured it was just a ninja thing, but Menma and Sasami didn't say anything about it. Yeah, he called the kid a Jinchu, something or other. Jinchuriki? Yeah, that sounds right. Something was clearly off now. Like a looming topic that was too uncomfortable to talk about. So much about ninjas was mired with a layer of nuances within nuances. On top of that was a mentality that shredded what it meant to be a decent human being. Sazanami couldn't think there were more than a handful of ninjas that could make such a claim for a profession that outright discouraged it. Naruto and the others were outliers. Plain and simple. Despite that, he asked anyway. What is a Jinchuriki? It's nothing. Hokushin snapped. If the master hasn't said anything about it, then I won't either. Just ask your question already. He groaned, choosing to ignore the man's irritated personality for another time. He was right though. Naruto's past, his answer, it wasn't a kind one. If the kid wanted to keep it to himself, then he wouldn't pry. It wouldn't change anything in his mind. It's simple. How do you manipulate water with your chakra? Hokushin blinked. Huh? What the hell are you on about? Manipulate water? Isn't your affinity wind? What about the Kiba blades? Shouldn't you be trying to learn lightning style instead? I mean, just what the heck are you trying to do? Do you know what your dash? Sazanami slapped his hand over the assassin's mouth. His barrage of questions only added to this irritating distraction. How do you manipulate water? That's all I need and you can go back to doing your own thing. Ugh. Fine, it makes no difference to me. Not like it will do you any good. It would take you months or years at least to use it properly, if at all. There was a mocking laugh from the assassin. He was smiling at him like whatever he was about to learn wouldn't matter. Let's see if you can retain any useful information then. With a single hand seal the impromptu lesson began. The major hand sign for water style is the dog seal. Principles for using water style are rather simple in theory. By using your chakra to gather and manipulate all forms of moisture, one can shape it into just about anything. The most powerful jutsu can only be used with a large body of water around, while many practitioners store and convert water inside their own bodies. Those who are most skilled in water style can go a step further by drawing moisture from the air. The assassin's hand reached out and grabbed his wrist. Sazanami could only shiver at how cold it was. Like 10 degrees cooler than the ambient temperature. Hokushin quickly let go to show that his wrist was now damp. Little droplets of waters trickling down his skin. Condensation, he muttered. So you do have half a brain after all. Yes, the greatest users of water style use whatever moisture they can acquire. With that, I shall leave you to your floundering. Hokushin's body flickered away, leaving him to figure out the rest on his own. It wasn't all that bad even given the demeaning tone. Sazanami hadn't got what all that affinity stuff was, but was keen on learning all 7 nature transformations. Naruto had spoken about them and what they could do. He was curious as to whether all of them could be used with Kenjutsu. In theory he should be able to do it. If wind could be applied to a sword, then why not the others? More importantly, if a blade could be crafted to control lightning, the other elements should be doable as well. Even the more esoteric ones like yin and yang. Setting the Gatora down, he pulled out the Kiba blades. His attempts to copy Reiga's power had been non-existent. He had no idea how lightning was formed or manipulated. The blades conducted chakra more smoothly than his regular sword, but both lacked the length he was more accustomed to. Naruto hadn't a clue about how lightning style was used, nor did any of the others. Even Ranmaru, who had been at Reiga's side for several years, couldn't describe the chakra manipulation well enough to make any discernible progress. So for now they were the world's more expensive paperweights until they reached the second base in the land of forests. So until then he would figure out a means to use water style to fill the time. Hopefully with this he would be able to find more about Kenjutsu to get closer to Naruto's level and start figuring out what made these swords tick. 3 times. Once on the lips during their encounter with Orochimaru. The second time she did it on his forehead after saving that village from being flooded. Lastly, was over a month ago on the lips again. Sadly she had been suffering from heat exhaustion, so it had been a little blurry. Altogether it came out with 2.5 times. 2.5 times she and Naruto-kun had kissed. Every time she felt something. Something indescribable. She was more than certain it was just feelings of attraction. Being around Naruto-kun, it was like he had some sort of presence that made all her pain disappear. She was more happy and calm around him. Those feelings even went further those few times she actually touched him. It was mysterious in a way but no less alluring. It wasn't just her that noticed it. Sasami was certain it was why Menma had always opted to sleep near Naruto as well. Even with all the bad stuff that happened recently, Sasami could not recall a single time she had a nightmare when Naruto was sleeping next to her. She was hopeful today that they would become even closer. Naruto-kun had been very apologetic to her when she asked that her bonus be a day with just the two of them. He told her he was sorry because of how busy they had been and with how little privacy they had with everyone else practically attached to their hips. Sasami understood. With Menma, Sazanami, and now Hokushin and Ranmaru, their chance for some private time had been quashed. So when she asked for this he had waved it off, saying he would spend a whole day with just her and give her something else for the extra reward. Right now she was adjusting her new clothes in the bathroom mirror. This would be the first time she actually wore them. They were as comfortable and durable as Naruto-kun claimed. It was a peach-colored blouse with a black skirt that went down past her knees. Her footwear now consisted of black boots that covered the rest of her legs. Around her waist was a red side pouch which held all her ninja gear. Her head covering was thrown away. She no longer felt it necessary to hide her appearance anymore. Not when she had Naruto-kun and the others by her side. She twisted around, checking the back of her clothes to see if there were any wrinkles. Everything was nice and tidy. The emblem Naruto had etched on the back of their clothes was proudly displayed. It was an orange spiral with an X shape in front. Naruto told them that the spiral was of the Uzumaki clan. A homage to his mother's family and his origins. Yet, he didn't want it to be wholly the same, so in front was a crossing of a sword and Naruto's Kazuchiha. At first she thought it was a cane. But looking closer it was the unique weapon, just emblazoned to show it was firing a projectile. A nice bit of detail to those in the know. Regardless of the nice clothes, the emblem felt like it unified them as a team. Sasami loved it. Finishing the last of her makeup, she proceeded to tiptoe out of their hotel room. It was almost mid-morning, but Naruto had said they would be taking a break in this town. So Menma and Ranmaru were still sleeping in their futons in the middle of the room while Sazanami and Hokushin were out. Naruto-kun was already waiting outside for her. His eyes widened in surprise when she came down the steps. His mouth dropped slightly. She was already nervous. His staring only made her even more so. "Gee, good morning, Naruto-kun." She stuttered as her heart beat hard in her chest. Naruto extended his hand towards hers, sliding his fingers in until they clasped together. He gently pulled her closer so that her arm was resting against his side. He slowly leaned in and whispered into her ear. "Yano Sasami-chan, if you keep dressing up like this I have to start chasing other guys away. It's unreal how cute you look in your new clothes." He whispered so close into her ear that she could feel his breath on her neck. That had only made her heart beat faster. "I'm guessing this is the first date you've ever been on." She bobbed her head. A little conscientious about that fact. Naruto seemed like he was popular even when he was younger. He probably had a lot of girls who wanted to go out with him. Then I guess I better make it extra special then. It was better than what she had hoped for. He started by taking her shopping. They had left Tanzaku town yesterday and opted to move on to someplace more tourist-friendly since it was primarily a gambling town. So they were currently in a city located at the bottom of a cliff, called Warem. Apparently Naruto spent several weeks here with Master Jiraiya and had enjoyed staying here. Sasami couldn't help but agree. It was massive and had a lot more happening than anything place she had ever seen before. The land of rice paddies, where she grew up, was more rural and didn't have places like this. Even from the amount of people that this city held, it easily fed the capitals in the lands of birds and stone. She wondered what the capital of the land of fire was like. It must be the largest city on the continent. "Let's go inside that shop over there," Naruto suggested. It was a regular clothing store. Nothing fancy about it like that tailoring shop. It looked more oriented towards girls than guys. "Let's look around. Whatever you want I'll get it for you." "You don't have to do that, Naruto-kun." I have plenty of money. I know, but you also have family back in the land of rice paddies. The Fuma clan is still struggling to get by, so I'm sure they would appreciate any support. Maybe even write to them to say how you're doing. That's right. Her goal was to support her clan. With the money she got from her share was more than what she needed for herself. The rest she could send back to Hanzaki and the others in Tetsukiri. She was sure it would come as a surprise to them to see so much money. If it helped them out, then she would be happy. For too long she had the wrong idea about her clan. She was so focused on the traditional role of what shinobi were, bowing their heads to some self-serving noble with nothing but their own greed ruling them. That's not how it had to be. There were so many villains in the world that the Fuma clan could help get rid of. They could become a clan that were champions of the downtrodden and accumulate wealth and prestige from their deeds instead of taking thankless missions. Her eyes cast over to Naruto-kun, who was holding up different pairs of glasses to his face. She giggled to herself at how he was trying to look smarter. They certainly had a nice appeal to them, but Sasami thought Naruto looked much better without them. He was probably only trying them on for curiosity's sake. Her leader was someone who wasn't shy to try new things. Yes, if there was someone the Fuma clan should follow, it would be him. She was certain of that. So Sasami-chan, did you find anything you like? Naruto asked. She nodded. Yeah, a few things. What about you? The blue-eyed blonde nodded. From behind his back he was twirling a gray traveler's hat, with a flat top and a black band across the crown. I think so. Sazanami should like it. It's the spitting image of the one he lost in the land of stone. That's what he wanted for his reward? Just a hat. Naruto threw his free hand up. I guess. It should pair nicely with his new clothes. Sasami had to agree with that. Out of the 6 of them, Sazanami was the only one who opted for a traditional kimono. It had a lot of silver trim on it that blended well with the smoky gray. With the hat he would look a lot like a traveling samurai. The only thing that he had been adamant against was shaving. He and Naruto traded arguments about presentation and wanting to grow it out. It mainly involved Naruto pointing at Sazanami and calling him Captain Homeless. She giggled again, remembering how silly they were last night at dinner. They stopped by a few more places. Mainly clothing shops and a few food stalls for lunch. Apparently during festivals they usually had stalls open from one end of the city to the other. It would be nice to come back again. After concluding their shopping, Naruto took her across the city towards a movie theater. It was kind of exciting. She had never been to one before, let alone watched a full-length movie. The theater was so dark and the screen was so large. It was crazy how loud it was too. The movie itself. A hero who falls in love with a cursed princess who hates the world. They go on a journey to find a cure for her. Then over the course of the story the princess warms up to the hero, and then her eyes kept glancing at Naruto's throughout the movie. Wondering all the while if he was having similar thoughts as she was about the relationship between the hero and the princess. At one point she gathered up her courage to rest her head on his shoulder. Only backing off at the last moment when he shifted in his sheet. Supposedly the main actress was actually a real-life princess. A ruler of an entire nation in the far north. A lot of people liked her work, so they placed her a lot of movies. It seemed like she was someone special if the dedication at the end credits was any indication. To Naruto. My rainbow hero. What? Naruto-kun, don't tell me. It was a bit shocking to see those words. Naruto just smiled when they showed up on screen, mouthing he was surprised and that it was probably a coincidence. Sasami wasn't so convinced by how quickly he tried to change the subject. Especially knowing the type of person he was. It felt strange to her knowing that there was a princess that liked Naruto. For some strange reason several days before they left the land of birds she felt a bit awkward around Princess Toki. She too kept checking up on Naruto regularly after he defeated Hoki. Oh, you gotta be kidding me, Naruto cursed as they exited the theater. Those idiots. Shaking her thoughts she peered towards where Naruto was pointing. On top of an unfinished roof was Menma, hammering away roofing tiles. Walking around front was Ranmaru holding a tray of snacks. He was passing them out to the workers. It seemed like the two of them were helping to build a new house. It wasn't anything bad. They were being helpful. No, that part was fine. Naruto wasn't pleased for a different reason. Those clothes cost over 1,000,000 ryo, and on his first day wearing them he goes and does construction work. Naruto let out a painful groan. He even roped in Ranmaru into his weird psychosis. I swear I'm not leaving the two of them alone anymore. Otherwise Ranmaru will work himself to death helping every person he sees. Sasami was split on this. She liked that Menma was helpful. At least when he respected personal boundaries anyway, recalling the underwear washing incident. But she had to agree that Menma could have changed clothes if he was going to do such labor-intensive work. His new clothes were similar to Naruto's. The long-haired blonde opted out of wearing a vest though. Mainly wearing black pants and a light purple-colored dress shirt. He kept his green scarf but tied it in a way that it tucked into his shirt collar. It was dignified in a way. Ranmaru on the other hand, Naruto kind of went overboard. It was like dress up. When Naruto helped him pick out new clothes. Like a parent doting on his child. He kind of went overboard. Ranmaru was now wearing a dark purple blazer on top of a white shirt. He had matching purple shorts and ankle socks with his dress shoes. To top it off, Naruto got him to wear a black bow tie with the ensemble. Anyone would admit he was cute in the outfit. Sasami was just a little peeved that Naruto felt the need to coo and glomp on the boy when she was definitely more cute. Forget the princesses. That was the most frustrating of all. Should we go say hi? Let's not. I would rather not have Menma try and rope us into helping. We're here to relax. Besides, Naruto's hand brushed her hair to the side, today is just for us. Frustration lifting, she nodded, wrapping herself around his was just for them. They could spend time with the others anytime they wanted. The day was already half over, so she didn't want to waste any more time. After shopping and a movie, Naruto said things were about to get a lot more interesting. That their date would be cranked up to the max with this next activity. They re-entered the main plaza, Naruto guiding her to this mystery activity. Any expectations of what it could be were quickly halted by the scramble of people. A large space was being set out right in the middle of the city. Stalls and items that littered the space were quickly being cleared away. Tiles were being placed into rows where they formed a large square on the rocky ground. They were smooth and polished with a floral pattern on them. It seemed like everyone was setting things up around it now instead. At one end was a small stage. 4 men dressed in fine garments sat in a row with musical instruments. Naruto strutted onto the tiles, leaving her stunned for several moments before she realized what was going on. A slight bow as blue-eyed blonde took his hat off and extended his. May I have this dance? Everyone was watching them. This whole setup seemed to be a concoction of Naruto's. She barely knew how to dance, let alone felt confident enough to do it in front of an entire city. Seeing her hesitance, Naruto took her hands. Relax, Sasami-chan. Just follow my lead. Oh, okay. Naruto took his right hand and slid it onto her waist, while hers found itself on the top of his shoulder. They were close. Very close. Sasami could smell the scent of pine needles and malt liquor from his cologne. It was a heavy scent but felt earthy and warm. The movements of the dance were fast and dynamic, so every shift seemed to fill her with that scent even more. Her nervousness was quickly fading as she got into rhythm with Naruto. Even as the song pace increased, she found herself matching her partner with ease. Their movements, their breathing, and their eyes. No longer burying her eyes in Naruto's shoulder, she found his blue eyes aglow with an intensity that she couldn't look away from. Now for the finale, he whispered. As the climax of the song approached, Sasami found herself being lifted up into the air. She spun like a top with her arms in an arc shape. At the height of the lift she could see the entire plaza. Eyes watching her in amazement as she slowly descended back down. Naruto sweeping her up in his arms before she touched the ground. The plaza erupted in applause. Thanks for the support, Naruto said. But it's no fun when we're the only ones having a good time. How about a song for all the couples out there? He gestured to the band where they started playing again. This time it was a slower song. Something right out of a romance story. Here, hold this for me will ya? Naruto took his hat off, tossing it into the air. Before touching the ground it stopped mid-air to reveal Hokushin. He had been using the camouflage jutsu. His outfit was the most like Naruto's. A black tie and pants, with dress shoes. A blue button-up shirt with a blazer instead of a vest. Naruto told them that Hokushin's look was the most similar to his sensei's. So that's why the assassin went with it. Had he been watching us the whole? Sasami shot him an unhappy look. She would scold him later. Oh, of course, master, enjoy. Hokushin flinched slightly before giving a small bow. He took Naruto's hat before vanishing again. I will. Naruto replied. He took his hand and slid it down across her waist like the other one. She unconsciously found both her hands sliding over his shoulders as he pulled her in closer. Their foreheads touched as their eyes became mere inches apart. Their heat grew with every second that passed. For Sasami this had to be the most intimate dance in the world. Just shuffling back and forth while embracing each other. She liked this dancing best. Out of the corner of her eye she could see other couples following their lead. Couples of all ages taking to the tiled ground to slow dance with their loved ones. Sorry if I caught you off guard with this, Sasami-chan. No, it's alright. I'm so surprised you were able to do this so quickly. Well, it's a good thing the movie ran long. It gave the regal son of the land of T's feudal lord enough time to give the mayor a generous donation to have an impromptu festival. Sasami was nearly at a loss for words. Wait, you had him have a festival here just because I said I wanted to see it this morning. The whole thing sounded incredulous to believe. Naruto leaned in closer, almost to the point where his lips brushed against hers. A first date should be special. If a heart could flutter any more she would have gotten an arrhythmia. Leaning in to fully kiss him she found herself thwarted by accidentally bumping into another pair. An elderly couple that didn't notice they were straying too close. They were apologetic about it but sadly it already cut her opening. They danced until the sun set. The lights began to litter the streets as more people flocked to the stalls and the excitement Naruto had brought to the city. It was amazing to see a place so busy and crammed. It didn't seem to bother Naruto though. He guided her through the crowd with ease. His smile was ever present as heads turned to him. Not that Sasami didn't understand why. Hokushin still had Naruto's hat. It had become something of a permanent fixture for the blonde. Even as he slept the hat was placed flatly on his face. So his entire face was showing now, allowing everyone to see his cute features. His hair was trimmed short and neat, with a very defined face centered around the jaw. The blonde locks glistened in the lights of the street stalls and with the sleeves of his orange dress shirt rolled up he had the appearance of a free-spirited prince. With the confidence and charm that one would expect of someone related to nobility. As ironic as it sounded, Sasami knew that Naruto would eventually become the very definition of roguishly handsome. Naruto led her to where they would be having dinner. A large, two-story, restaurant with private veranda booths on the second level. It was already packed with people, many of whom were waiting in line to get seated. Some of them were even a little rowdy. There was one oddly dressed boy in line whose stomach was rumbling so loud that everyone in the entryway could hear it. "Ah man. If I don't get something to eat soon I'm gonna starve." "Really, Koji? You just ate less than an hour ago." The blonde girl next to him scolded. Sasami felt a strong tug on her arm. They swiftly moved to the front desk where Naruto placed a chit on the register. The hostess was a bit stunned by the forcefulness of the action. "Reservation for two, quickly." Yes of course, follow me." They were guided up to the second floor. There were tables and lounging chairs set up, with a vantage over the floor below. Never one to do anything half-heartedly, their table was a private diner area in one of the verandas. A perfect view of the festival down as they ate their meal. An even more perfect way to end their date too. It was almost surreal that Naruto set something like this up so quickly. Still subduing her expectations, Naruto moved his chair next to hers. It was a table for two, so it would have made sense that a candle-lit dinner would have been better if they were facing one another. That's what she thought at least. Never in her life had she been this happy to be so wrong. The meal wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Simple yet delicious sukiyaki and yakitori. Better than in most roadside restaurants they stopped at. No, it wasn't the main meal that Naruto had seated himself next to her for, it was dessert. A dessert she would never forget. Yes, could we get a piece of cake please? Chocolate, preferably, with one fork or similarly ethnic utensil. Naruto asked the waitress. It was a bit strange but she complied, swiftly bringing one back to them. Naruto-kun, why did you only get one? She saw his debonair smile as he cut a small piece off the cake. Because sweet things are best shared. He answered, pushing the fork to her mouth. Going along with it she took a bite. It was really good. Best cake she ever had. Not for the regular reasons though. Naruto took another piece and this time ate it himself before alternating back to her. They were sharing a fork. That's when Sasami realized why he moved his chair next to hers. Naruto was a step ahead of her once again. Which didn't stop her from happily taking the next bite. Using her lips to scrape off the excess chocolate. While not technically considered a kiss, she would count it as a half, bringing the total up to 3. One small piece remained. Barely half of a normal one. It was Naruto's turn to take a bite, yet, he held it up on the fork to her. Want to share the last bite, Sasami-chan? Her skin felt hot suddenly. She didn't understand what he meant but his voice made her body shake. Breathing became a little more shallow as her head bobbed slightly. Like she was going along with the motions. Gentle and soothing motions. Stick out your tongue, he commanded. She obeyed. Her tongue out as the chocolate rested on top of his. His warm hands sliding onto her cheeks as he leaned in. Her moaning as they connected. The intensity of his kiss as their tongues shared the chocolate between them. Fireworks blasted off in the sky. They ignored them, as they remain in their own world. The cake was long gone, leaving just them to enjoy each other. She casually slid over from her chair, taking a spot on his lap. If Naruto wanted to share something sweet then she would share this moment for as long as she could. For Sasami, it was 4 kisses and counting. Shikamaru groaned. There wasn't supposed to be a festival here today. In no time at all everything became packed, crowded, and worst of all, loud. Not that things weren't already with his former teammate chewing out his best friend. Despite his misgivings at being placed on rotation by Lady Tsunade, he was glad to get the experience. Going against nearly 12 years of instincts he was actually putting in real effort. He'd shudder at the thought if he wasn't so tired. Missions back to back? What a terrible way to live. The only reason he was here coming back from his second mission in a row was because Sakura wasn't feeling well. His sympathy for that was wearing incredibly thin these past 2 months. Since Sasuke nearly killed her and Naruto who knows where, she basically gave up. A sad and undeniable truth. He would be jealous of her quitting if it didn't mean dealing with his mom. Her release forms as a leaf shinobi would be filed and sealed soon. Once they got back to the village tomorrow, Sakura, along with Koji and Ino, would be sent off on another mission. It would officially be the last mission Sakura would take before formally being discharged from service. He had no clue what the mission was but knew well that Asuma-sensei wouldn't be there. After the incident with the bandits several weeks ago, Koji and Ino had been more protective of her during missions. A dangerous distraction. It was her choice. To leave it all behind. Shikamaru just wished Ino would stop complaining about it. Her already poor attitude went into overdrive and then some. Every little thing just made her snap even more. Everyone but Ino herself could see she was irritated by Sakura quitting. Scratch that. Ino was more than a little irritated. Which meant she was taking it out on them. Seriously, Koji. Do you have to eat so much? Asuma-sensei isn't here to pay you no. But Ino, I'm hungry, Koji whined. You're always hungry. Shikamaru noticed the waitress walk over with another plate of meat. This one was massive with enough beef that would have sent Asuma-sensei broke for several months if he was here to pay. She placed it on the table. Here you go. Awesome. He frowned. I'm sorry miss but we didn't order this. Oh yes, a friend of yours paid for it and your meal just a little while ago. She pulled out a notepad, reading off the message to them. He said for me to tell Koji that if he eats too much he'll wind up in the hospital again for indigestion, and then Shikamaru will make you watch as he eats food you are not allowed to have. I believe that's all of it. Shikamaru jumped to his feet. Those words in conversation were what he said during the intermission between the second and third round of the Chunin exam. He said it to Naruto. Practically those exact same words. If he was close by, then there was a chance they could catch up and find him. Before that he needed to be sure. What did he look like? Please, it's important. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. She answered. Did he tell you his name? Ino asked, now realizing the only person they knew with that description. Yes, of course. He said his name was Sasuke Uchiha. What? Sasuke? Ino shouted, getting her thoughts together before they could. Are you sure? Koji's jaw hung open, stunned by this revelation. Wow. Sasuke paid for our meal. Shikamaru shook his head at how blatantly ignorant these two were being. It's obvious it's Naruto trying to be funny. It means he was here before and was watching us. If he sent us that message, it also means he already left, right? He addressed the waitress. Yes, he and his date left not long ago. Before he left he paid for your meal and told me to give you that message. The waitress explained. She held out the note to him to verify it. Lo and behold, it was just that. And possibly a little more. Tell Koji that if he eats too much he'll wind up in the hospital again for indigestion, otherwise Shikamaru will make you watch as he eats plenty of foods you are not allowed to have. It was Naruto's terrible handwriting, all right. He had read it before during shared mission reports, yet there were some discrepancies. Some of the letters were clearly written differently to relay a message that was clearly to him and him alone. He cast his eyes over his friends. Koji looked angsty at the moment. If Naruto was here, then his best friend was probably thinking about getting him to return for Sakura's sake. Ino, on the other hand. Can we be sure this is actually Naruto? She said in total disbelief. I'd sooner believe it's actually Sasuke than Naruto Uzumaki on an actual date with an actual girl. Shikamaru palmed his face. She may have been missing the point. So what do we do now, Shikamaru? Koji asked. We'll need to let Lady Tsunade know as soon as possible. That was true, and normally he would. More feet on the ground meant they could try and bring him back more easily. Even with his jutsu meant to capture and subdue targets wouldn't work well against the guy who could make an army of himself. Even then. If this were any other circumstance he would, but it was clear there was something else going on. All the evidence pointed to that: Naruto's sudden disappearance, Tsunade's lies, and the wanted flyer. If Shikamaru handed the reins off to a senior member, then there was a chance of being stonewalled and told to go back to the village. The current problems in the village outweighed their desire to find Naruto. While Lady Tsunade had promised them that they would be a part of bringing Naruto back, he knew that a lot of truths would be buried before then. On top of that, they already pledged to act independently with everyone because of that. So he would have to play this by ear. Naruto's in this city. We should split up and see if we can find him. If there's a confirmed sighting, we'll send word to Lady Tsunade. They both nodded. Ino was already raring to go. Koji quickly gobbled up the cooked meat to psych himself up. While both of them searched aimlessly, he would take the chance to confront Naruto. He already knew where he was, so it was just a matter of going there. While he wasn't too familiar with this city, the hospital was clearly displayed with the cross sign on the front. It was only a few minutes away. He swiftly leapt from rooftop to rooftop. Anticipation and curiosity burning into his mind. Worry and heartache knowing that Naruto hadn't a clue of all things that happened since his disappearance. Nothing was more of a drag and troublesome than talking about all this heavy shit. Landing on the roof of the hospital, he could already see a figure leaning forward on the railing adjacent to him. The light cast from the buildings below highlighted his appearance enough for him to pause. He wore a black vest and pants, an orange shirt underneath, and a black hat. His height was taller than that of Naruto's by a little bit, and he seemed more filled out. Shikamaru doubted for a moment that this was even Naruto at all. Maybe some ruse or trick. There was no mistaking it though. That loud boisterous voice that shouted at the world at every opportunity. Hey there, Shikamaru. How was your dinner? The figure, Naruto asked. He didn't reply right away. His body froze trying to process his voice. It was his annoying blonde friend without a doubt, but his tone, it wasn't right. He cleared his throat as it felt unnaturally clammy at the moment. Fine, I guess. I noticed you have quite the sense of humor, Sasuke. He. Sorry I couldn't resist. I knew Ino would go crazy if I said that. Naruto laughed some more. The blonde's usual baritone in his laugh, still present. It was uncharacteristically diffusive for Shikamaru, who was on edge. So? How have you been? How have I been? Really? You've been gone 3 months and that's the first thing you ask. Yes, how stupid of me to be polite and ask how you were. Or was I being too specific? Okay, how has everyone been? Before I answer anything I need to ask a question, I want you to face me too. The blonde let out a sigh, scratching his hair as he turned around. 3 months was not a long time. Even for those who were young like they were. To change so much, it was harrowing. The cheerful and energetic blue eyes of the blonde, who always seemed to be in over his head no matter where he was gone. It was like he was staring into the eyes of a predator. Fierce, wild, and dangerous. But Shikamaru knew that they were the most glaring change. Everything from his posture, the way he smiled, and yes, even his drastic change in wardrobe made him scream in the back of his mind to get away. Top run from this person standing in front of him. Relax, Shikamaru, Naruto said, placing a hand on his shoulder. Getting worked up is a drag, isn't it? Why yeah. He replied, taking an extra deep breath. Trying hard to regain his bearing. He couldn't get cold feet now when he may never get a chance like this again. Naruto, what happened? I guess Granny Tsunade didn't tell you. She did. Well, she told us you went missing on a separate mission after the one we did to bring Sasuke back from Orochimaru's forces. Everyone knew she was lying though, since she didn't cover it up well. I see, makes sense. Well, the short of it is, she fired me. Fired you? I don't understand. Naruto shrugged. Neither do I. I remember being dragged into a large chamber room where Granny and a lot of the other high-ranking jounins were waiting. I was told that the feudal lord was charging me with some crime that I had no clue about. They stated I was reckless and dangerous, so my headband was taken from me. My status as a leaf shinobi was taken. Then I was shipped off to prison, barely aware of what was happening thanks to my injuries from our mission. That's the long part of it. Shikamaru processed the information with just about every morsel of concentration he had. Trying to pick out details. A cover-up of some kind, no doubt. That was the first thought that came to him. Taking apart how absurd it was to do something like this, it oddly fit. Why everything had been kept quiet about it until now. So this wanted flyer. Shikamaru mentioned, pulling it out of his back pouch. For escaping prison, of course. Naruto said casually, taking the flyer from his hand. Oh man, it still chafes me that's still only 900,000 Ryo. Naruto, you do understand what this means, don't you? This basically declares you as a rogue shinobi. Your chance to become Hokage is basically erased because of this. It's your dream. Everything you struggled towards. Relax, Shikamaru. I have other plans in mind right now. Other plans? That will be a surprise for later, he said, handing the flyer back. Right now though, I'm more curious about what's been happening in the Leaf Village. Shikamaru greatly wanted to refute that. It was inconceivable to him that Naruto would brush off such a monumental roadblock in his dream. 3 months ago, it was all he could talk about. For the blonde, becoming Hokage defined who he was, or more specifically, who he wished to become. There was something else going on. Something his friend wasn't going to tell him. So he put it to rest right now. Naruto, you need to know, it's about Sasuke. The words hung there as this would be the most shocking news of all. They put everything on the line to return Sasuke to the village. Now, for cruel irony's sake, both Sasuke and Naruto were now considered rogue ninja. I already know about his second escape. I ran into Orochimaru not long ago. He told me what happened. Shikamaru, listen, this may be hard to hear, but for now it's the best advice I can offer. Just leave him be. It was surreal to hear that from the boy who stuck his neck out for every little thing. While Sasuke was never one of Shikamaru's friends, he had been determined to return him to the village as a fellow comrade of the Leaf. Besides Sakura, anyone would figure that it was Naruto who wanted to bring him back the most. Despite their past, the rivalry between the two, they shared an unspoken bond. One that neither would admit easily. Naruto continued. I've come to realize freedom is a gift that I never received. I'll support Sasuke as his friend even if I don't agree with his methods. So I hope you'll give him that same courtesy, Shikamaru. I know you've been suspicious about me, especially recently. I'm sure you'll have more questions, but sadly I won't answer them. Shikamaru understood the first part. A very stark contrast from before, but what stunned him more was Naruto's unwillingness to explain his reasoning. What? Why? Because I've decided from now on that Sasuke is no longer my rival. He can't challenge me the same way you can. You possess something he doesn't, a clarity of mind that no one challenges. Raw strength is not enough for me anymore. You're going to find that I'm not the same annoying kid who bugged you in the academy. I know you'll find this whole thing to be a drag. Sadly, I'm not giving you much of a choice. You want me to return to the village? Well, you're going to need every resource you can get to make that happen. Tonight, however, will be a reprieve until next time. Next time you better be prepared for everything I have. Naruto. How could things go so wrong? That the most loyal Leaf Shinobi, who risked everything to protect the village, just said that they were enemies. This was comparable to Koji saying they were no longer friends. It just didn't make any sense to him. No, it pained him to his very core. The blonde grinned at him. A devious and playful smile. He was serious about that declaration. Whatever the reason he had against going back, Naruto meant what he just said. Never would Shikamaru have imagined that his friend would say this. Saying that he was okay with being a rogue. Giving up on what he had for something for a future that could and most likely would end in tragedy. I understand, he managed, regrettably. Fighting every urge he had not to throw up. Before you go, I'll tell you what's been happening in the village. I guess I should start with the third Hokage. He finally woke up not too long ago. The old man, huh? Guess he'll be in for a shock when he finds out I'm on the lam, he. This isn't funny, Naruto. Whatever's going on with you can't continue. Sasuke, when he escaped again, he hurt Sakura. Nearly killed her too. It's so bad that she is about to quit being a shinobi altogether. Mentioning Sakura actually managed to shift something in the blonde. Even if something happened to make him change so drastically, he would always have a soft spot for the pink-haired girl. Maybe if he leveraged that, he could make Naruto see reason, or at least explain his actions. Naruto turned back towards the railing. He stared up at the moon, almost wistful as he spoke. I see, well, take care of her. Let her know my thoughts and heart are with her. You could always tell her that yourself. I'm sorry, but I can't. I have people depending on me now, yeah, no. Besides, I'm quite busy these days. When you report this to Granny Tsunade, tell her, I'm going to make a killing at the casino. That I plan on tripling my bets. Maybe even see the reconstruction on Tanzaku Castle. Shikamaru was going to ask what it meant by telling him that, but immediately stopped once Naruto had vanished in a puff of smoke. A shadow clone that he sent to talk to him while the real one was off somewhere else. It meant that Naruto either didn't trust him, or though coming in person wasn't important. Those last words as well. Others depending on him. Busy? Telling him where he's going to be? He let out a sigh as he rubbed his temples, trying to fight off the encroaching migraine. Naruto, you always seem to be the most troublesome person I know. Important canonical Omake. Naruto's first financial investment. Come on guys, this is boring. Let's go play something else. Yeah, you're right. Let's go. Yamauchi let out a tired groan as the next batch of kids he tried to sell his new product fell too flat on its face. It's not like he should be surprised. They were the 12th group of kids that basically told him his game sucked. That's what made no sense to him. How can any kids hate a game that includes ninjas battling each other? It makes no sense. Maybe he was better off just dropping this altogether. This whole venture was a long shot to begin with. He should have stayed on as a clerk for the Leaf Village message service. At least then he got steady pay. Pay that could put food on the table. Even if he was on the lowest rung as a genin. But nearly 30 years old at the same job for nearly 2 decades ran its course on him. A game that battles ninja? Sounds interesting. Yamauchi looked up to see a boy standing in front of his booth. Kind of familiar too. He was young but wore fancy clothes one would expect from a traveling merchant. It appeared like he just walked out of the city's main hall. What? I mean, yes. A game where ninja battle each other. Please take a seat, young man. Yeah, sure, I don't have anything else going on right now, I guess. So what's this game about? It's a card game. Each card has ninjas on it that battle each other. He had made this pitch countless times. Each one had been retweaked to keep the kids interested. Quickly finding that they didn't care so much about long-winded rules. Excellent. I'm great at card games. It's called Shinobi Picture Scrolls. You may find this one a bit different. The best way to learn is to play as you go. Ultimately the rules weren't that complicated. 2 sides with Shinobi on each card. They are assigned a value, which determines how much damage they do. Once a side takes so much damage they win or lose. To the kid's credit, he picked up the game fairly quick, but inevitably it went back to the same issue. It's boring, he stated. Yamauchi slumped onto the table. Always the same reaction. I don't get it. The game itself is fun, but everyone loses interest after a few rounds. Well, yeah, it's because there's no variety. No variety? What are you talking about? You have 5 different factions. 1 for each village in the Great Nations. The kid's look was critical. Yeah, but they're all generic. They're either Genin, Chunin, or Jonin. There's only one Kage card and all of them have the same values. Yeah, just like in real life, Yamauchi defended. Yeah, but if they wanted something like that they could just play shogi. Most kids I know aren't too keen on it because of how slow it is. If you want to make this a kid's game, then you should listen to what they want. He flinched. Thinking back, he never did get feedback from them. Thinking about it, he couldn't help but think the kid was right. So what do I do? The kid tapped his lips. Well, you should try and differentiate each card. Make each unique and have it so they can be played with other factions. LSO, this is a game about shinobi, so you should have cards that have weapons or specific jutsu. That's a really good idea. 1 second, let me write this down. What else do you think I could add? He shouted, grabbing a paper and pen. Well, the drawings aren't bad, but if you make each card unique, you technically could just get a picture of a famous ninja and place them on the cards. Not just from the 5 great nations either, but from all the different villages. Maybe even some famous ones that died a long time ago. Light bulbs were going off in his mind now. Yes. Yes. I can make those ones more limited and rare. With more common ninja cards more plentiful. With that he could make more money and kids could trade them like they did with others' toys like marbles. This kid was just a gold mine of ideas. But there were just 2 problems. How would I get pictures of certain ninjas though? Some are hard to find, let alone have photos lying around. What do you mean? I mean, like if I wanted a certain picture of, say, the 3rd Hokage, then I couldn't just go up and ask him for it without issue. The kid looked at him for a moment. He squinted in confusion. Why do that? That sounds like too much work. It's easier to just do this, transformation jutsu. In a puff of smoke the kid transformed into the former Kage of the Leaf Village Hiruzen Sarutobi, pipe, and all. Then you just need to take a picture. The boy said, mimicking the Kage's voice perfectly. Yamauchi was completely floored. He too could use the transformation jutsu. With just some old photos or drawings he could make cards that were unique and were actually based on real shinobi. This is the game changer I needed. Is that all? The kid asked, transforming back. Yes, it's great. But. The only other problem is that I need the money to make them. I have a camera, but printing the cards takes a special machine I don't have access to. These ones I made by hand were just prototypes to get investors interested. You need money? How much? Thinking on it, after factoring in these changes, the price would be steep. Especially if he wanted to get them to each major village. Just going off the top of his head, he blurted out a number. 1 million ryo. Now he never expected this to happen. When some random kid walks up to you, the chances of him pulling out the exact amount you need is the last thing you would expect. Yamauchi was gaping like a fish when the kid placed said amount on the table. Done. This should cover it. That, are you serious? The kid smiled, extending his hand. Sure, the game was fun, but with these changes it'll be a lot more extreme and interesting. So let's do business. Like an angel extending its hand out to him, he grasped it with both hands. Yes. Whatever you say, partner. We'll make a fortune off of this new game. With an even better name this time, Extreme Shinobi Picture Scrolls. Chapter 21. Tsunade was struggling to keep the sound of her teeth grinded to a minimum. Her irritation rose quickly as the tracker squad reported Naruto's movements to those present. After Jiraiya's encounter with Naruto almost 2 months ago, they now had a solid lead on his whereabouts. An odd turn of events given their recent attempts and methods to find him. A few days ago she had even greenlit a mission recently involving Team 8 to track him down. They left to find the rare Baikaku beetle to help locate Naruto. A long shot at best given how endangered the species had become. Whether they succeeded or not in finding it wouldn't matter. They already had a fix on where he was. It figured the loud brat wouldn't have stayed hidden for long. She just thought he would be at least 1,000 miles away from the village, trying to avoid being captured if he was so inclined to do so. But Naruto was never sensible. As crazy as it originally sounded when Shikamaru came in with his report this morning, it appeared that the blonde boy was currently in the Land of Fire. Less than a day's travel away from the village. It was hard to believe he could get so close to the village without being noticed. Especially when everyone was on high alert for anyone of his likeness. They've had half a dozen false alarms as a result. Going off of what Shikamaru reported, it sounded like Naruto would be in Tanzaku town next. His wording almost pointed to their prior bet in that town when they first met. Their investigation did suggest he had been there only a few days ago, but his movements were backwards. He traveled from Tanzaku to Where, not the other way around. So you're telling me it was just a wild goose chase? Tsunade griped at her tracker ninja. It appears so, milady. His scent was faint, but we could find it at an inn located in Tanzaku. The lead tracker ninja explained. It seems the biggest reason for going to Tanzaku town was to use the commodity exchange office. Commodity exchange? Just what was he doing there? He lied to them about who he was, claiming to be some noble heir. We assume it was to not raise suspicion of the transaction itself. I don't even know how he would get his hands on so much gold. But the chit from that transaction shows he gained nearly 100 million ryo from the exchange office. He then proceeded to make lavish purchases with the money he received. The tracker ninja then proceeded to tell her what said purchases entailed. Every single purchase. Tsunade nearly choked on her own tongue. That wasn't pocket change by any means. It was honest-to-goodness gambling money. The sort of stuff she would scam wealthy lenders into giving her back when she was wandering around with Shizune. The boy always had an unnatural luck with earning money, but this was ridiculous. Rogue ninja always had difficulties getting by and resorted to common banditry in order to make ends meet with their skills. It was typically viewed as an affront to what shinobi were. A betrayal of their skills. Naruto, on the other hand. A pile of money, lavish clothes, going on dates and throwing parties. The brat's gone rogue, but he's living better than I am. She cursed Naruto out in her head over and over, swearing to make his punishment that much worse when they hauled his ass back here after she tanned it personally. Tsunade, we cannot put this off any longer, Homura said. He sat next to his fellow counselor, Koharu, off to the side. Tsunade had been trying to ignore them as this new development fell on her lap. If the boy has truly turned on us, then he needs to be subdued before something worse happens. Koharu nodded, adding to her colleague's opinion. His importance to the Leaf Village is one of security. An asset like that in the wrong hands would only doom us to a repeat of 13 years ago. Hiruzen should have listened to our advice and restricted Naruto to the village instead of placing him on Kakashi's team. He should never have been part of the shinobi forces to begin with. Tsunade bristled. She did not take kindly to such talk. So much of what's been happening with Naruto was still a mystery. His escape from Hozuki, two of the fourth Hokage's kunai showing up, and the rapid growth of Naruto's skills. Important pieces they were missing without any context or clue as to how they fit. Yet, here these two were, making it sound like this was some house pet that wandered off. It seemed like age had rattled their minds more than she thought. Even going so far as to scoff at such weak logic. You say that, yet, the reason he was sent to Hozuki Castle had nothing to do with him being able to go out on missions or not. Now because of you two our legal options in regaining Naruto are slim at best. Our fault? I don't see how you could blame us for what happened when it was Minister Hikio that filed the charges against the child, Koharu defended. Even then the boy still broke out of custody. That in itself is still a crime. You say that like we'll be justified in containing someone who was innocent when he was sent to prison in the first place. Besides, it was you two that adamantly pushed for taking away Naruto's headband. Saying it was better to make it seem like we were casting doubt on him. You even went to the others and persuaded them behind my back. From what Naruto told Shikamaru, he knows full well that we are on shaky ground legally. Any ninja with half a brain knows that when a shinobi is stripped of their headband it means they are no longer considered shinobi of that village. She clenched her fists. This next part was harder to ignore as the days progressed. If he finds out what he was actually charged with and that he'll easily have them dismissed, then Naruto would be within his rights to walk away and never come back. God knows I would. Don't be so naive, Tsunade, Homura scolded. He is the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. The first Hokage dash. Be quiet. Don't you dare twist my grandfather's intentions with your militant nonsense. Just because the other villages went against his wishes with their Jinchuriki doesn't mean we get to. Or does the wishes of Hokage and the founder of this village you vehemently cling to mean nothing? She leveled a glare at the two of them. They both knew they were treading in deep water. With her nearly ready to push their heads under. The Nine Tails has never been used as a weapon for the Hidden Leaf. Only Madara has ever deigned to do so, and you are both aware of how history has treated him. Even if we claim the beast is considered to be used as a deterrent, it only gives our adversaries reason for hostility. So I ask you both this, what solid ground are we standing on here? What do we gain from trying to contain a boy that created an S-rank technique and managed to escape the continent's most heavily contained prison? Naruto's legal guardianship was still under the Hokage's office, but that was hard to challenge. Too many orphans drop off the radar without any real concern for where or what they do. Presenting the motion that Naruto was a special case when he was never given any real special privileges wouldn't sit well with the feudal lord. It seemed Lord Madoka had now taken a special interest in the boy given his relationship with Minato and Jiraiya. The latter of whom had always been his top choice to become Hokage for decades now. His treatment after they brought him back would be heavily monitored by the Land of Fire's government. What else was there? Familiar ties? He was the son of the fourth Hokage. Not that Naruto knew that. As someone who was the granddaughter of the first, such things didn't really matter. Especially when they were trying to keep that knowledge contained. So it left her holding the bag as both someone sympathetic to Naruto's circumstances but ultimately was still responsible for bringing him in on Lord Madoka's request. She clutched her necklace, wanting to laugh at the sheer insanity of his situation. Knowing this whole mess was separate from the long list of enemies that were gunning for Naruto. That's the only reason she would fight tooth and nail to bring him back. Naruto had a world that wanted what he held inside him. So it would be her turn to make him see reason. He would be brought back and she would use every ounce of strength she had to help him become Hokage from now on. Nonsense. All of the Hokage knew that the safety of the village would always come first. Especially over the wants of a single person. So it doesn't really matter if the child wishes to remain a shinobi or not. What matters is the Leaf Village's property. The nine-tailed fox belongs to the Leaf Village. That is all that really matters. Should Naruto surrender it to us, then he would be free to do as he pleases. Homura assessed, adjusting his glasses. Giving up the Nine Tails? You mean transferring it out of him? Not only would such an endeavor potentially release the damn thing in the village, but it will kill Naruto in the process. Then I guess his service to the Leaf Village is a life sentence. Whether the fourth Hokage realized it or not, the child has been branded part of this village. A permanent fixture like his predecessors. No matter what path he chose here in the village. That is his fate. That is what it means to be a Jinchuriki. Tsunade was on the verge of losing it. These pompous assholes had some sort of talent for saying the wrong things. Her grandfather and great-uncle would roll in their graves if they had known how callous and cold-hearted their students had become. Her grandmother was never treated with such vileness for her life, and Tsunade doubted if it had been her in this position she wouldn't have taken any of this shit either. Neither would she. Definitely not while she held the title of Hokage. All of this is moot until we find Naruto anyway, Shizune blurted out as Tsunade began to rise from her seat. Her apprentice was clearly trying to diffuse the tense atmosphere. Not that it would work. So why don't we dash? Asterisk knock. Knock. Knock, asterisk. They all turned their attention to the door as a loud knock interrupted the conversation. Enter. It was Iruka. Panting and hunched over. He burst through the door in a panicked frenzy. Lady Hokage. Lady Hokage. We have a problem. What is it, Iruka? We just got word from the guards stationed at the Leaf Village's maximum security prison. There was a riot and all the prisoners escaped. Everyone bolted to their feet. You're kidding me. Now of all times. It was just one catastrophe after another. Shizune. Have all available personnel organized to find and contain them all. I want a list of everyone that was locked up as well. Move people. They both scrambled, flickering out of the room. She too would need to oversee this. Right now she had little tolerance and even less faith in prisons at the moment. Something would need to be done to ensure such events never happened again. Tsunade. You must release the information, at the very least. Hiding it won't help anyone, and it appears Naruto doesn't care. Homura said right as she reached the door's threshold. Even trying to sound reasonable, it still churned Tsunade. Like saying his name made it seem like they care. Her nails dug into the frame, cracking the wood under her strength. She knew that doing this would only bite her in the ass later. She nodded slightly, giving her reluctant approval. Whether Naruto truly wanted it or not, everyone in the Leaf Village would soon know he was a rogue ninja. Report. What changes have occurred with the target? Lord Mui ordered as he sat in their makeshift base. A large tent in which the warden sat mainly in the dark as the weeks progressed. The only times in which he left were to train and wash himself. He was a man possessed by his goal. Ryazetsu bowed her head, keeping her face hidden well with her umbu mask. Her presence on this mission was not one she liked. The village council all but forced her to go along Lord Mui's crusade to restore Hozuki Castle's reputation. Like that was its true purpose. They were a bunch of two-faced scum. Present circumstances notwithstanding, the amount of effort their village had wasted in this endeavor for vanity's sake vexed her. If she had it her way, they would have dumped that stupid box into the ocean long ago. Then leveled Hozuki Castle until nothing remained. Too much has gone into a box that has only caused division and sacrifice. Too much sacrifice for Ryazetsu. None. We have been tailing them since Tanzaku Town. They have recently just left Warem and are now staying at a small village south of the Hidden Leaf Village. She reported. And the Leaf Shinobi? Many have been dispatched to Tanzaku Town. It seems that the target has successfully baited them away. While the Leaf searches in the northwest, Uzumaki and his companions head in the opposite direction. His current destination is unclear. Only the small nations of the Fire Peninsula and the Land of Tea are likely options. Good. We'll wait until he crosses the border. We can't have the Leaf interfere until we successfully return him to the hidden grass. Go and keep me updated until it's time. Yes. She flickered out of the tent, heading back to the vantage point she picked to watch Uzumaki. For someone who had escaped from a prison so infamous in its ability to contain the worst of the worst, Uzumaki seemed to be having a grand time. Since Tanzaku Town, the boy had basically swaggered through the same land that sent him to prison in the first place, not caring one bit about who saw him. His lavish festival in Warem yesterday proved that. It was like he was daring everyone to come catch him. She had become more suspicious of whether or not Uzumaki's group was aware of their presence. Much of his comrades' abilities were unknown. Only guesses could be made. As strange as it sounded, their outfits made it difficult to get some idea of their skills. A lot of shinobi tailored their outfits around the jutsu they used. Even the rank and file uniforms of the larger villages played a role in determining the level of skill a shinobi held. All 6 of them were wearing clothes more suited to rich clients than actual ninja. They were certainly an odd bunch. That mild entertainment was all she could take to get some sort of calm from all this. The hidden grass divided and she had already picked a side. It just made it more difficult to work with those on the opposite. They couldn't see the fruit they were trying to grow was one of poison. Something that they couldn't consume or else they would eventually die from. No, they needed to be a flower. One that was strong and could survive any weather. She was certain Muku would have felt the same way. Beware Naruto Uzumaki. You're about to enter tall grass and you may never find your way out. Cheers! Naruto exclaimed, holding his bottle of Sapporo up to the assortment of other drinks. Cheers! His friends shouted back, doing the same. They were holding a celebration of sorts. Since they had been on the move a lot and hadn't stayed in one place too long, he felt it prudent to hold their celebration party a little early. The original plan was to wait until reaching the second hideout in the land of forests but became a little impatient. This little village had a ton of natural hot springs, so what better way to fulfill one of his sensei's greatest rules? Criminal rule number 9, make sure to celebrate your victories, otherwise failing and winning mean roughly the same thing. While they had some ups and downs, this was what Naruto had wanted since entering the land of fire. A chance for all of them to be together to toast their past and future. By tomorrow night they would officially be crossing the border out of the land of fire. His trek through his home nation coming to an expeditious end. So this afternoon and later tonight would be their own little party. He was patting himself on the back for how well this turned out. They rented out a private bath, turning it into a pool party of sorts. No one else was around to bother them. Just a good time with swimsuits, a portable barbecue, plenty to drink, and Menma playing some upbeat music. It didn't get better than this. Well, actually it could. The only thing he was missing right now was a giant bowl of ramen. If he had that, everything would be absolutely perfect. Sadly, ramen wasn't one of this village's specialties, so he settled for yakitori, alcohol, and rubbernecking Sasame's pink-striped two-piece swimsuit. A winning combination if ever there was one. Sazanami just shook his head as he gave Naruto an unimpressed look. Really, kid? This was your idea? You couldn't at least put in a bit more effort? Naruto sat up from his lawn chair, readjusting his sunglasses. What do you mean? I mean, why are the rest of us wearing swimsuits and you aren't? So he technically wasn't wearing a swimsuit. It was a full-body wetsuit that shinobi wore, sometimes used during amphibious missions. It kept their gear dry and helped with regulating the temperature of the water. Nothing gave ninja away faster than a sneezing fit from a burgeoning cold. When they were picking out swimsuits earlier today, he chose this instead. It was completely black and covered him from head to toe. A bit snug in some places, he would admit. To keep with his theme of fancy clothing, he added a bit of special orange paint, turning it into a formal dress wetsuit. Sometimes his genius scared him. As did his amazing art skills. Well, it was your money to waste, he muttered before leaning it. A sly grin etched on his face as the swordsman whispered, "It seems like Sasami isn't too happy about your choice though. You never did say how your date went." Naruto shook his head, wagging his finger at the swordsman. "Tisk tisk tisk, Sazanami, you just don't get it. Criminal rule number 10, always keep the mystery alive. People are more captivated in things they don't understand than the things they do. The less she sees, the more curious she'll get." His eyes caught the orange-haired girl in question looking at him. She was indeed frowning at his attire. He didn't get it. Well, Actually, he got it. Her disappointment given their recent closeness. But side by side, a regular swimsuit was bulky on him. His slim black-orange wetsuit was form-fitting and required less imagination to the onlookers. A compromise for Rule 10. Besides, a gentleman never kisses and tells. Seems like you've got more game than I thought, kid. More than you realize. Now shoo, he waved his hand at the swordsman, you're blocking my Sunday. Blocking your son? For what? You're hoping to get a tan while wearing a full wetsuit. No, the paint is still drying. Sazanami just laughed as he walked away. Just because the swordsman was older and had a more developed body could he strut around without a shirt on. All Naruto had were questionable tattoos and little muscle to show. His cuteness levels wouldn't last forever, so he had to wait until he gained some bulk to show off. That would mean staying fully covered as much as possible. Like how Kakashi-sensei covered his face. Maybe I should start wearing a second suit underneath my normal one, he pondered deeply. His musing didn't last long as he eyed Ranmaru walking over to him. They didn't have a swimsuit his size, so they used a pin to hold it in place. Somehow it looked cute on the tiny boy. A level of cuteness that was a stark contrast to Sazanami's whole rugged old man look. Ranmaru looked apprehensive. Barely eating and more concerned about the assholes who've been tailing them since Tanzaku town. Lo and behold, right after getting their fittings done at the tailor's shop, Ranmaru took the initiative, using his crazy powerful sensing abilities, and said they actually were being watched. From their levels of chakra they were most likely shinobi as well. Quite the ironic turn of events, giving his gag tricking them into buying new clothes. Since their watchers didn't attack them en route to wear, it appeared they were waiting for something. Naruto figured that they weren't with the Leaf Village or he'd have 100 or so ninja on his tail. So it left him with 3 guesses. 1. They were some bounty hunter after his measly 900,000 Ryo head. That seemed unlikely. The second possibility was some other government or organization was after the 9 tails. Probable and about time, honestly. It had been a while since someone came after him for that reason. The last reason was that he gained some fan and now one was stalking him. Naruto hoped that was the case but knew it was a stretch wider than the ocean. But hey, anything was possible, he figured. So for now it was a wait-and-see approach on when they would poke their heads out. What's up, Ranmaru-chan? Are you not enjoying the party? He cooed, trying to cheer the little guy up. He shook his head. It's not that, it's just. It was sometimes hard to get a read on Ranmaru. He was quiet and very monotone most of the time. For Naruto it just seemed like he was really bashful. Which turned out to be wrong when Ranmaru comes out and tells him something completely unexpected from his expectations. Case in point being, Naruto thought Ranmaru needed to use the little boy's room when instead he was trying to say that ninjas were skulking around, watching every move they made. I sense something nearby. Something malevolent. Just so. Naruto already knew about it. While his empathic abilities granted by the fox came and went at random, he too had felt off for a little while now. Something a little ways north of their location was rubbing him the wrong way. It vaguely felt like his encounter with Hokage. But with it so close to the Leaf Village it was probably some yahoo with a death wish trying to attack them. I know, but it's too close to the Leaf Village. Ranmaru nodded but his frown deepened. Worse, it looked like the boy was about to cry. It tugged at his heartstrings. Naruto kicked off the chair and knelt in front of the cutest child on the planet. Gently patting his head. I'm sorry, Ranmaru, I didn't mean to upset you. What? No, I'm not upset. The boy blinked in surprise. Oh. We really got work on your facial expressions. Made me think you were about to cry. Sorry, it was just that I was curious. I mean, I wanted to see the village where you grew up. Naruto scratched his head. Trying to wrap it around the idea that someone would actually be interested in something like that. Ranmaru was naturally curious and he doubted Reiga visited other hidden villages. Really? I mean, well, we couldn't go inside, but I guess you have your powers to see farther than normal and this could technically be considered an advance on your bonus, I guess. If it's that important to you. It would also give him a chance to see where that uncomfortable feeling was coming from. He couldn't place his finger on it, but it felt uncomfortably nostalgic. The tiny boy beamed a smile at him. Really? I would like that a lot. Clutching his chest, Naruto nearly doubled over as his heart felt like it was going to melt. The smile was like a forbidden jutsu. Yeah. He wheezed out. Let's sneak out and go, then. We can get ice cream after too. Iruka clutched his side, fighting through the pain as he hid within a bamboo grove. He had already gotten separated from Ebisu and Tsubaki. Their current condition was also unknown. Given their opponents, the outcome didn't seem good. Things had quickly spiraled from bad to worse following his departure to find Shizune. She had been sent out ahead to find the mastermind behind the prison breakout, Mizuki. On reflex he concentrated, molding his chakra to perform the replacement jutsu. It came just in time as a massive fist crashed down on him. The force was great enough that the log he switched with shattered into tiny splinters. Found you. Found you. Now I'm gonna tag you. The large man sang. He was a criminal known as Raijin. He and his brother, Fujin, were known as legendary idiots with strength that was said to rival Lady Tsunade's. It sounded preposterous to Iruka at first. Seeing was believing though. He grunted, clasping his bruised ribs. Feeling was believing too. No one thought that the two brothers had run off with Mizuki. His former friend had been the instigator of the prison break, and it was becoming clear that he had their help. It would explain why they lost contact with Shizune's team. Even Jonin had difficulties subduing both of them. With Mizuki too, no one was certain what he was planning. It still hurt Iruka. Seeing his former best friend lose his way and betray them all. The same friend that helped him become the shinobi he was today. Then to see that friend throw it all away for the sake of power was heartbreaking. Hey sonny boy, are you still doing alright? The gruff voice of Kakashi's ninja hound, Pakin, asked him. It was the little pug that led him and Ebisu towards the last known location of Shizune and her team. Only for it to be Mizuki, masquerading as her. Neither of them fell for it. Nor did Mizuki care that they knew. Fujin and Raijin were more than happy to do Mizuki's bidding as he watched on and laughed. It only got worse when Tsubaki showed up. He didn't expect Mizuki's fiancé to be here as well. Her begging fell off deaf ears as Mizuki scorned her, shouting that Orochimaru was going to give him enough power to take over the Leaf Village. Mizuki's words cut through her as she broke down into tears. His former friend had clearly lost his mind, as he even said he would get rid of her if she stood in his way. Ebisu barely managed to pull her away as one of the hulking brutes nearly flattened her. That had been almost an hour ago. Iruka had no idea where they were now. He assumed that they had their hands full with Fujin, the bigger of the two brothers. Where Mizuki was in all this mess was anyone's guess. What his objective currently was unclear. Whatever promise Orochimaru made Mizuki, it went as far back as the incident with the scroll of sealing. Everyone had thought it was just the rogue Chunin using it for his own benefit. It never occurred to anyone that the plan was to hand it over to the treacherous Sannin. Pakin, where are the others? Not far. Try and ditch this numbskull and I'll lead you to them. Iruka nodded. He had been holding out hope for some kind of reinforcements. With a priority placed on recapturing all the escaped inmates, he assumed backup would get here eventually. If they were, then they were taking too long. Right, let's move quickly. He tossed a smoke bomb down, using the cover to flee. Wow, it's so smoky. Raijin shouted, unaware of its true purpose. They bolted away quickly, trudging through the thick bamboo to reach the outskirts of the former training tower used during his instructor qualifications exam. It was a pile of rubble now. Mizuki had used it not long ago to try and kill them. Not far off he could see Ebisu trudging along with Tsubaki. The other brother, Fujin, had been on them. Right now Iruka couldn't see any sign of the lumbering giant, but from the trees falling not far behind them it was clear he wasn't far behind. Ebisu. He waved, getting their attention. Iruka. Thank goodness you're alright. Ebisu shouted as he had Tsubaki's arm over his shoulder. Her leg was bleeding, wounded from Fujin's attack. Even the special Jonin was looking a little worse for wear. They both had seriously underestimated their adversaries. While known as idiots, the brothers were brutal with their strength. I managed to get away from Fujin for now, but I fear it won't be long until he catches up. Yes, we need to regroup with another team in order to subdue them. Sadly, Eureka knew that the nearest team was at least an hour away. It almost made more sense to run back to the village. Such a desperate move would be obvious to Mizuki and be their end if they let their guards down. As all three of them were, they wouldn't survive another attack. "Hey sonny boy!" Pakin grunted, pushing his paw against his leg. "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we have more company incoming." The pug's ominous warning was quickly confirmed. Out of the trees came the mastermind behind the entire prison breakout. The smile of his former friend's face sent literal chills down his spine. Madness. It was the only word to describe it. Mizuki was high on his lust for gaining power. No matter what means, he had to do it. Even killing innocent people. In his hand was a beaker full of some red liquid. Mizuki was playfully sloshing it around. His grin filled with a gleeful madness that showed just how twisted the former Chunin had become. After a year in prison, Mizuki had become stronger from the physical labor and seemed more deadlier now than he was before. Whatever was in that vial couldn't be good. Well, still alive I see, Eureka. Ha ha ha. Mizuki cackled. Mizuki, please stop all this. It's not too late to start over. I know people will give you another chance if you stop all this. Eureka was desperate. At this point nothing short of fighting would be likely to subdue Mizuki. So they needed to buy more time in hopes backup would arrive. Oh, would you shut up already? You're like a broken record, Eureka. Spewing that same garbage that the leaf prattled over and over. You just don't understand what it means to hold power in your grasp. What it means to be a real shinobi. We certainly know it's not in some vile liquid created by a traitor, Ebisu spat. Mock all you want, none of you are making it out alive. Mizuki put his fingers in his mouth, letting out a sharp whistle. He was calling Fujin and Raijin. The pair's immense speed could be felt in the ground as they sped back to Mizuki's side like a pair of guard dogs. With all three of them here, it would be impossible to escape. Hey brother Mizuki. We got lost and couldn't find them. Raijin grumbled. Yeah, they're not playing fair and keep disappearing. Not fair. Not fair. Fujin whined, shaking his fists. Mizuki's face shifted into a more understanding one. Oh, is that so? Guess they should be punished then. Crush them quickly and I'll prepare a feast that'll be all you can eat. A feast. All right. Food. 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 Eureka shuddered as the carefree grins of the two idiot brothers turned vicious. Their eyes filled with excitement with Mizuki's promises. The two were perfect pawns. Powerful, strong, and dim-witted enough to go along with any promise of food. It was no wonder they were locked away in prison or why Mizuki had been able to use them so easily. He could feel a gust of wind on his face as the two charged at the four of them. Too fast to dodge and too powerful to block without being crushed under their fists. Like unstoppable mountains that would crush them until all their bones were crushed and their bodies broken. It was at times like these where regrets were dredged up. He had only 3 moments in his life where he felt like he could have done more. The first was with his parents' death. He understood that it was well beyond his control, but at times he felt selfish and clung to the idea that if he begged his parents to stay with him they'd still be alive. Those dark moments had become less frequent as he grew older and understood the responsibilities of being a shinobi. It was as a shinobi that he experienced his second failure. A crucial mission where he let his compassionate nature interfere with a mission, nearly getting his comrades killed. As a result, he requested to be placed as an instructor at the academy. Sadly, the most important failing had been several years as an academy instructor. Even after finding his calling teaching the next generation of students, he found one boy in particular hard to deal with. Yes, Naruto was the one person he should have helped much sooner than letting his personal losses blind him to the pain of a boy who wasn't to blame for any of it. Now his favorite student was in trouble somewhere and had no idea how to help him. I'm sorry Naruto, he whispered as Fujin's fist was inches away from his face. For what? Seems like if anyone needs to apologize it's these idiots here. If you two are hungry then open wide. Twin Rasengan. Iruka had barely opened his eyes in time to see two flashes of light and a gust of wind push against his face. Just briefly did he hear a very familiar voice speak into his ear. Other than that, two wailing cries of pain rang out, followed by even larger sounds from the ground being torn apart. Just barely could he see the dark outline of someone standing before him. What just happened?" Ebisi asked. It took a few moments to see that Fujin and Raijin had disappeared. In their place were two craters lines that lead off back towards their path. He could barely make out the two giants lying on their backs unmoving. Even from a distance it didn't appear then would be getting up. Just standing before them was a person. They were short, wearing fancy dress clothes he had seen clients for missions wear sometimes. Whoever they were, they didn't appear to be a ninja, except they managed to show up out of nowhere and take the idiot brothers down so fast he didn't even see it fully. "What? Just who the hell are you?" Mizuki yelled. "1 second. The mystery person held up one finger to the traitorous Chunin before turning back to them. It looked like this person was a young boy. He strode past Ebisu and himself, stopping right in front of Tsubaki. She was stunned when the boy took her hand and kissed it. "May I inquire the name of such an enchanting beauty such as yourself?" Looking flustered, the kunoichi muttered her name. "It's Tsubaki." "A pleasure to meet you, Tsubaki-chan," the boy gave a slight bow, taking off his hat. "Naruto Uzumaki, at your service." Iruka inhaled deeply, shocked by what was just said. He heard the name but could scarcely believe it. Gone was the loud wild-haired blonde with a personality that couldn't be contained. In its place was a neatly trimmed, fierce-looking boy that seemed more reserved to be his favorite student. Even as the boy turned to show that nostalgic toothy grin and deep blue eyes, he had difficulty believing it. "Wow, Iruka-sensei, you look like crap." Well, maybe he wasn't all that different. No amount of nice clothes could magically give Naruto a filter for his crude comments. "Naruto, is that really you?" The blonde nodded, placing his hat back on. "Of course, who else would I be? I gotta say I'm impressed that you got yourself a girlfriend here." He motioned over to a very confused Tsubaki. "I was honestly worried you would die alone being crushed by stacks of unmarked test papers." Tisk. "Naruto. Don't be rude. Besides, Tsubaki and I are just friends." Naruto's face puckered up, turning over to Ebisi. "Don't tell me." The special Jonin adjusted his sunglasses. "Stop with this inappropriate line of conversation, you miscreant. I am not in any illicit relationships with any of my colleagues." "Good to see you haven't changed much, kid," Pakin said. "Been looking for you for almost 3 months." Naruto scratched his chin, looking a bit groggy at that knowledge. 3 months, feels like it's been over a year since this all started. But anyway, it's good to see ya, Pakin. Come here for a sec. Hey, what are you? The little pug was scooped up and placed right up against Naruto's face. The blonde was sniffing the dog thoroughly, looking pleased with the scent. "Really? You wanted to smell me that bad?" Well, it's because you still use the same shampoo as Sakura. Just really missed the scent." It was funny. Out of nowhere Naruto just magically appears in a life or death situation and the mood shifted so easily. The boy had been gone so long it honestly shouldn't surprise him how much Naruto had changed. It seemed ever since he became a shinobi his growth was unparalleled. Like the moment you looked away he grew into a new person. "Naruto, Tsubaki here was actually Mizuki's fiancé," he explained. "What? Really? You're telling me that this," he hooked his thumb to Tsubaki, "stunning beauty was going to marry that idiot?" "I'm sorry, Naruto," Tsubaki said awkwardly, "I know he caused you a lot of trouble. Now he's here again causing even more problems." "He is?" Iruka pointed over to the shocked traitor. "Yes, Naruto, he's right over there." Naruto gave Mizuki a noticeable glance from head to toe, obviously noticing the stark difference in physique. His former student was gaping at it in fact. "That's really Mizuki? Damn, and here I thought I had changed after escaping prison." "Yes, I heard the village finally wizened up, fox brat." Mizuki mocked. "To be honest, they should have locked you away years ago. A hopeless loser like you had no purpose being a ninja in the first place." "Loser?" Naruto held out his arms in a mocking gesture with a smug smile to match. From how I see it, you took a year to escape the Leaf's local jail while it only took me a day to get out of Hokage Castle. I guess all that power you sought amounted to nothing, huh? Mizuki snarled in anger at Naruto's taunts. To be honest, it was hard to hear that the rumor he had heard from Lord Mui had actually been true. Lady Tsunade had told him that the boy had gone missing on a mission. Something he took as fact until the warden of Hozuki Castle cornered him in his classroom. Hearing it straight from the source really sunk in how out of the loop he was. The very idea of Naruto being sent to such a horrid place was inconceivable. So was the idea that Naruto could easily escape. The words of Mui came to his mind about Naruto being some secret genius. Even now he would vehemently refute that claim. The blonde struggled for everything he had, nothing was just handed to him. Well, we'll just see who's the loser once I drink this. I wasn't able to give Lord Orochimaru the sacred scroll of seals, but at least I'll have the power he offered me. Really? The whole time you were just another one of Orochimaru's suckers. Naruto groaned. Both of his palms were rubbing his eyes as let out one of the longest sighs he's ever heard. Just barely could you hear the boy mutter something about the Forbidden Scroll incident. So let me get this straight, you'd rather go off to drink whatever snake oil Orochimaru tricked you into taking instead of staying in the village to play with your sexy fiancé? You really are the worst. Mizuki's patience had come to an end. Without a shred of hesitation, the former Chunin downed the vial of red liquid. He could only imagine what Orochimaru had concocted for this supposed power-up Mizuki had so vehemently pursued with such furor that he would betray his friends and village. It was disturbing in a way what singularly driven madness looked like up close. The glass shattered on the ground as the last drop was sipped. You know, you all should feel honored you get to be my first prey. Contorting and grunting out in pain, Mizuki chakra levels began to rise noticeably. It was so immense that it was actually making his skin crawl in fear. This was quickly preceded by physical alterations. Mizuki's arms and muscles expanded and grew rapidly. He was screaming out in pain as red markings spread over his face and arms. They eventually formed black markings akin to tiger stripes and sharp fangs. My god, just what the hell is this? Ebisu muttered. A curse mark, Naruto acknowledged. So that's what I was sensing. He. Guess this won't be boring after all. Iruka wanted to chide Naruto for saying something so inappropriate but was too transfixed on the monstrosity his former friend was turning into. His fears about the poison in the vial were coming true before his eyes. Any semblance of the man who had once been his friend was now gone. Frozen in fear, they could only watch as Mizuki started to laugh. Yes. This power. I can see your fear now. What, are you all too scared to make a move? Then I will. Starting with you, fox brat. Mizuki blurred so fast Iruka couldn't track his movements. In the blink of an eye he reappeared before Naruto with a fist already inches away from the boy's face. Iruka was sure Naruto would have been sent flying back. Instead he saw something unbelievable. Wow, I guess Orochimaru didn't spring for the good snake oil with you. With his palm stretched out, Naruto didn't even budge as he stopped Mizuki's fist cold. Even as the former Chunin towered over the neatly dressed boy, there didn't seem to be any sign of panic or worry. What? How? What do you mean? Did you think I was just twiddling my thumbs this past year? Naruto grinned wolfishly, taking Mizuki's look of shock with great amusement. I mean, it didn't cross your mind, did it? That you'd face someone who'd already faced Orochimaru multiple times and came out on top. You defeated Lord Orochimaru. Don't make me laugh. Mizuki's other fist came down now, only for the same thing to happen. Naruto had Mizuki's fists locked. The transformed man was growling and yelling as he pulled with all his strength. In fact, it appeared to everyone that Mizuki was in pain. Naruto was squeezing the man's fists with enough strength that you could hear bones cracking. Arg! Let go of me. You monster! Monster! Please, I'm barely using any strength at all. It's you that needs to work out more. That way you can really throw a punch properly, like so. Naruto released one hand so that he could form a fist. It looked more like a love tap than an actual strike. A move anyone with even a modicum of skill could see a mile away. Mizuki easily held up his hand to block it. only for him to be sent flying back nearly 50 feet. The transformed Chunin was sputtering and coughing up blood. It wasn't just a simple push. A massive bruise was shaping Mizuki's chest. This humbling blow seemed to do little to deter his former friend from stopping his streak of wanton violence. In fact, it appeared to only spur him further. That's it. No more holding back. Rock. With a mighty roar, the level of chakra rose again. This time Mizuki's body seemed to be taking on a more animalistic form. Fur sprouted from his skin. It was really like Mizuki was taking on the persona of a tiger. You're dead. Mizuki charged, the ground giving way under the immense power. Naruto, continuing this show of improvement, did the same. Both vanished. Loud smacking sounds echoed as blurs barely came into focus. Incredible, seems Naruto's grown so much stronger since I last saw him, Pakin assessed. His speed matches Kakashi's. Indeed, Ebisu added, adjusting his sunglasses. It's unnatural in the rate he's grown since the Chunin exam. It's like he's a different person, which makes what we have to do much harder. Harder? I don't understand. Ebisu cast him a long-side glance. The special Jonin was a man who seemed to hold Naruto in a better regard than most these days. Something that Iruka had come to like about him. Similar in their own interactions with Naruto. Iruka. Naruto just admitted he's an escaped prisoner. I don't believe what I need to tell you what that means. The Jounin's fist tensed. We have no choice. That's where you're wrong. You seem to have this one-track mind there, Ebisu-sensei. All of them turned to see another Naruto standing there. He was holding hands with another boy. One that was smaller and wore purple dress clothes. Whoever he was, he seemed to take them all in with a bit of shyness. Naruto. He turned back to the ongoing fight. Technically the one fighting hadn't gotten hit yet, so it was hard to tell which was which. Wait. Are you a clone or the original? I'm a clone. But I'm more curious to hear what your thoughts are on this, Ebisu-sensei. The clone seemed to have heard them, taking the words with interest instead of the unpleasant situation it actually was. Ebisu didn't appear to like having to dredge this up. It was hard enough to listen to, let alone say aloud. Naruto, I don't understand the circumstances, but whatever the reason is, you must return the village, otherwise you'll be hunted down and dragged back. Yeah, Noda, I'm a rogue shinobi now. It'd be kind of boring if the leaf didn't put in some effort. Even if my headband was formally taken from me, I still know anyone with a stick up their ass will want a piece of me. Naruto then frowned, looking down towards the smaller boy. Please don't tell the others I swore. I don't think they'd appreciate that. The smaller boy smiled, giving a small nod. Wait, Naruto, I don't understand. What do you mean your headband was taken from you? This was the most glaring of the horrific words that came out of the clone's mouth. The harsh realization that Naruto was actually keen on remaining a rogue shinobi was even worse than Mizuki's betrayal. What's there to say? No one really tells me anything. Even after I genin, it seemed like that was the standard procedure. All I know is that I was dragged in front of the Hokage and the other clan leaders, told I was being charged with a crime by the feudal lord and was a danger to everyone, had my headband stripped away, then was shipped to Hozuki Castle. I was kind of hoping to finally know what I was actually charged with, but since I escaped, I guess that point is moot. Thinking about it, Iruka couldn't help but think there was some greater conspiracy involved in this. Naruto always seemed to be stuck in the middle of greater powers. Now it seemed one of them actually pushed the boy out of the village. He could see that Ebisu, Tsubaki, and Pakin were also mulling over these words. The little pug responded to this information first. Kid, I don't know how to tell you this, but Lady Hokage dispatched Kakashi to Hozuki Castle to look out for you. The whole thing was a plan designed to keep you safe from an unknown threat. I believe it was Lady Tsunade's intention to get you out once the situation was handled. Oh? That's news to me. The way Naruto said it made it clear he wasn't too impressed by the Hokage's methods. Given the context and how it was handled, he couldn't blame the boy for the feeling hurt. I'm curious, what was this mystery threat after my life? Pakin flinched, his eyes looking off to the side. Whatever it was, it seemed like it was either really bad or the answer wasn't something that could be shared. Naruto started to chuckle. Ah, I see. So it wasn't someone after my life but a clerical screw-up. That sounds about right. Regardless, even if it wasn't intentional, my headband was taken from me by the Hokage and I opted out on returning to the village. Iruka couldn't believe it. The boy who so adamantly declared he was going to become the Hokage was now turning his back on that dream and all the struggle put into becoming a shinobi. All that pain and misery wasn't something that one just shrugged off. Naruto wasn't a quitter. He fought through adversity. So to just throw it all away, it would mean that Naruto was. Looking the boy straight in the eyes, he wanted to confirm this here and now. Even if things had changed so much, Iruka knew deep down his favorite student wasn't someone who did things halfway. Naruto, tell me, what is your dream? My dream. The boy beamed a smile. One unwavering and filled with confidence that didn't have the same hollowness that many of the previous boasts Naruto threw out. The hairs on the back of his neck stuck out and his skin tingled. An overwhelming feeling of awe overtook him at the words he never thought he'd ever hear. I happened upon a man who said with no uncertainty that I could easily become Hokage and that I was aiming too low. If the first Hokage could come up with a title everyone respected, then why can't I? Something that eclipses all the Kage, feudal lords, and anyone else that tries to claim the title of strongest. Ha 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 ha. You're serious? Why wouldn't I be? This life is the only thing I got, Iruka-sensei. Whether anyone agrees with me or not, hates me or not, acknowledges me or not, I will see it through. Naruto pinched the brim of his hat. There is someone I have to challenge and being Hokage just won't cut it. So I'm picking my own path, not containing myself to any burden except the ones I choose. Hearing all this, Iruka didn't know how to really feel. Naruto was abandoning the village, but it was hard to decry his intent or what he was trying to achieve. In no time at all, the boy who wanted everyone to acknowledge him no longer held that priority, stating he didn't care about what others thought of him. So what could he do? Iruka knew how stubborn the boy was, and seeing him grow so much in such a short amount of time, he couldn't help but feel that perhaps Naruto's place was elsewhere. Which was still the main problem he faced. Naruto, I want you to know that whatever you decide to do, I will support you, but as a leaf shinobi, as I said, we all have a choice. I may be a rogue shinobi, but I'm not letting anyone define how I live. Even without a headband, I will still hold those I call friends to me dear. Now unburdened from my responsibility as a leaf shinobi, I can help whomever I want, regardless of who they are, even if it's their objective to capture me. Of course, even after all this, Naruto at his core wouldn't change. The existence of a rogue shinobi was spurred as an existence that must be exterminated. Blights upon the shinobi world that must be removed for their treachery. But could such a vile side to the world handle someone like Naruto? The two seemed as different as fire and water. So in a way things could change drastically if a rogue shinobi like Naruto became some kind of hero. A well of emotions filled Iruka. Tears pushed out even as he tried to wipe them with his sleeve. Geez, Iruka-sensei, yeah, I got to man up. I won't always be around to save your hides, yeah no. Iruka bit out a laugh. Sorry, I'll miss you. Yeah, while eating different kinds of ramen, going on adventures, and causing trouble has been fun these past 3 months, I still miss you guys a lot. How's everyone else been? I've heard Sakura hasn't taken Sasuke's departure well. Yes, that was a situation that was difficult to deal with as well. Sakura was on the verge of quitting being a shinobi altogether. It was disheartening for him to hear that any student of his was struggling. But that wasn't what he wanted to say now. Instead, he told Naruto about what was happening around the village. Pakin, Tsubaki, and even Ebisu added in some details. Mostly things in the village were busy. Too many tasks with too little people to do them. Damage from the attack during the Chunin exam had already been fixed, and a sense of normalcy was finally established with Lady Tsunade as Hokage for a few months now. The only real news that worth saying had to do with the one person Naruto was probably even closer to than himself. Naruto let out a sharp whistle. So the old man woke up. Man, won't he throw a fit when he finds out I'm on the lam. I believe Lady Tsunade wants to refrain from telling him for a while. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Be kind of sad if he had a stroke and died from another one of my antics. Crash. Sliding in front of them was Mizuki. They had taken their attention off the fight that appeared to be winding down. The original Naruto seemed to be yawning into his hand, looking more bored than anything else. True enough, Mizuki was panting like crazy. His buff physique seemed to be shrinking. A faint steam was coming out of the fur then lined the man's back. How? How come I can't hit you? Kentoken, prize fighting fist. It's a fighting style that works well against opponents much larger than myself and who are slower. Slow? What are you talking about? My power, my power. You barely have enough energy to yell anymore. Did it never occur to you that there may have been side effects to the snake oil Orochimaru gave you? Isn't that right, Ranmaru? The younger boy at the clone's side nodded. Stepping up, Iruka could see the same orange sigil sewed on the back of his clothes that Naruto had. It was similar to the one the Leaf used but with a noticeable X mark in front of it. Yes, I can sense his life energy fading, the young boy said in a very monotone way. If he doesn't get treatment now, his body will be unrecoverable. Lies. You're lying. This is the power given to me by one of the legendary Sunin. By Lord Orochimaru himself. Streaming as he stood up, Mizuki charged one last time at Naruto. The difference now was pitiful. The concoction that his former friend drank had run its course and was now reaping the side effects that came with it. I am the one who will receive everything. Naruto held up his right index finger. On the tip of it a small swirling orb chakra formed. He held it out at Mizuki's chest. Mini Rasengan. That jutsu is the fourth Hokage's, Ebisu muttered in surprise. Since when could Naruto use it and with such ease? Iruka was also surprised, but given that the boy had training from Master Jiraiya he figured he shouldn't be. Actually it made sense now seeing Fujin and Raijin lying unconscious. The two must have gotten a less restrained version and were laid out because of it. For Mizuki, who was already close to collapsing, it was the last nail on this fight. His former comrade and best friend just couldn't see what was real anymore. The imprint of Naruto's jutsu scarred the center of Mizuki's chest. Any remaining power that was retained began to slip away, leaving the traitor to waste away into a shriveled mess. Mizuki had indeed become more powerful before drinking the poison. It was said now that any potential he once had was now gone. Naruto's clone dispelled as the original approached. A moment where his former frowned as the information the clone possessed was given to the original. It seemed like Naruto was making full use of that jutsu as well. Ironic given that it was thanks to Mizuki that allowed Naruto to learn it. So the old man is awake, Naruto continued on. Any other news? I just saw Team 10 not long ago. What about Team 8 and Guy-sensei's team? I'm not sure about Lee, Neji, and Tenten, but Team 8's been on a roll lately. Iruka had heard the news about their latest mission only yesterday. Shino, Kiba, and Hinata managed to subdue a waterfall jonin that had stooped to banditry. In fact, they were even given a mission to find the rare Baikaku beetle. A beetle? It's special, Pakin explained. They were more common back in the day but have become rare due to how valuable they are. Even we ninja hounds can't smell as well as they can. From the moment they are born, a single scent is given to them. No matter how far the target goes or how they mask it, they'll find who they're looking for. Which happens to be me, right? It was from this information that Naruto actually frowned. You wouldn't happen to know where this beetle is located, would you? I'm sorry, but I don't. I actually know where it is, Tsubaki cut in. I was on a team with someone from the Aburame clan and they took me there once. She pointed off towards the northwest. If you go straight in that direction it'll be a day's distance from here. Really? Thanks, Tsubaki-chan. It's no trouble. Figuring all that's happened, it was the least I could do. What do you intend to do, Naruto? Ebisu asked curtly. I'm assuming you plan on interfering with their mission. I'm afraid so. Don't worry, I'll just play a little prank on them and let them know I'm alright. It's just that, Naruto placed a firm hand on the younger boy's shoulder, I have people I'm in charge of now, as hard as that is to believe. It was and it wasn't, to be honest. Naruto seemed like a person who could make friends with anyone if given the opportunity to. It wasn't hard to believe he made allies since leaving the village. The only questionable part was the fact Naruto was their leader. Were these people sane? Did they need help? Leadership wasn't like a jutsu. You couldn't just weave some hand signs and make those qualities appear. Yes, you never introduced us, he asked curiously. Naruto smushed his face against the younger boy's. Something that briefly made him blush at the close contact. This adorable little one is Ranmaru. He's my group's latest hire. I have high hopes for him. Ranmaru gave a very small bow to them. Hello, it's nice to meet you. Your village looked like a nice place. Our village. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto had the sense at least to look sheepish at this major breach of village security. Yeah, the whole reason we came out here was because Ranmaru was curious about where I lived. I took him to the South Mountain to give him a view of it. Ah, that wasn't as bad then. It sounded like Naruto paraded the boy through the village without telling anyone. It wasn't like you could see much from that spot unless you had something like the Byakugan. Still, it made him curious as to why Naruto would bring someone so young on such a dangerous journey anyway. Are the others following you like Ranmaru here? What? Oh no. Ranmaru is by far our youngest. 2 of them are my age and the 2 are about the same age as you. That was better to hear. At least there were people Naruto could turn to if he really needed help. It seemed like his former student had grown more than just in fighting ability but in maturity and wisdom. Speaking of which, one of them recently got their hand on an item that requires skill in lightning style. Do you know the first exercise for it, Iruka-sensei? Naruto clapped his hands together, hiding the begging grin that he was all too familiar with when the boy failed to hand in an assignment or showed up to class late. He huffed on instinct of the boy's flippant way of asking for something. Still, it felt nice to see Naruto like this. Awkwardly he scratched his chin with his index finger. A habit when he was trying to be caring to the blonde. I guess, since you did help us. While I'm not a lightning style user, I do know the basic exercises, but they are a bit complex. Actually, what's lightning style's primary source of activation? Source of activation? Truthfully, he was dubious about telling Naruto this because of how complex it was. A factor that didn't play into the boy's strengths. Well, it would be current. By allowing your chakra to flow back and forth as it builds up friction. Usually it helps when there are 2 points that regulate that flow. He chuckled, laughing at how vague that was. No way Naruto would get it. I see. Something like this then. Naruto held out both of his index fingers but an inch apart. In a matter of seconds the chakra began to flow and release tiny sparks into the air. Nothing major, but enough that it would at least take several weeks to pull off. He wasn't if Naruto was capable of doing it. He could see Ebisu and Pakin were also gaping at how easily Naruto performed this feat. Sweating a bit, Iruka put on a smile to hide this shock. Yes, exactly. Amazing Naruto, you must have a powerful natural lightning nature. Nope, I'm a wind type. This was my first attempt. Feels kind of weird to be honest, but since my chakra control is nearly perfect now, it wasn't too hard to pull off. Chakra control is nearly perfect. Just what sort of training had Naruto been doing? This was surreal that someone with so much chakra could control it to this level. Only 13 years old and Naruto was showing signs that one would expect from a prodigy. Perhaps the warden of Hozuki's words wasn't baseless like he thought. If Naruto was really serious about his new goal, then... Thanks. I'll let my friend know. Anyway, it was nice seeing you all again. I'm sure you'll hear of my exploits eventually, so, well, just stay safe. Naruto gave them a small wave before walking away. It honestly left Iruka a little stunned by how quickly it was happening. No real sense of drama or emotion. Naruto came in like a storm and seemed to be leaving like a gust of wind. There was so much more he needed to say. Naruto, where do you intend to go next? He felt stupid the moment he said it. While it was his duty to bring Naruto in, there was no way he would actually tell them. True enough, the boy turned with a cheeky smile, even sticking his tongue out at them. Isn't it obvious? Ranmaru and I are going to get ice cream. See ya around, Iruka-sensei. With a flicker, Naruto vanished with Ranmaru. The pair were most likely returning to these other friends Naruto made. I guess keeping up with him now was an impossibility. In his own mind he saw Naruto as a younger brother. Something he wouldn't get the chance to be very often now. It's not possible, Mizuki moaned, half aware of what was happening. No, it was possible. Before he saw Naruto as someone with potential to become something great. But, at times he had difficulties seeing it. Perhaps that was why Naruto had grown so far outside the village. Seeing his former friend lay there, it was really hard not to contrast the two. Both rogues, but on different sides. He would pray for Naruto to continue to follow his own path without losing his way. "Eureka, we must report everything we've heard and seen to the Hokage," Ebisu stated. Nodding, he turned to see the backup they had held out for, started to arrive. Leading them was Lady Tsunade herself. She looked confused at the scene before her. Her eyes met his. He knew the truth now from Naruto, and regardless of rank he would get the truth for her personally. Yeah. She'll be in for a surprise. Oh man, how long is it gonna take to find this place? It had been a few hours since his original made him go find where this special beetle was being searched for. The amount of chakra to make him should be enough to last a day, but he didn't want to be out here searching for that long. That's why he was moving as quickly as he could, easily clearing the distance that Tsubaki had instructed him with. Why did he believe anyone with a pretty face? He blamed his grandfather for corrupting him. The only light out right now was the glow of the moon. Being out at night while the original was playing with Sesame just wasn't fair. Why did he have to torture himself so much? By some miracle he was actually able to find the place. It was basically one big valley in the shape of a circle. While that didn't actually mean this was the right place, the clone was picking up on a few context clues that pointed to this being the proper location. The giant wasp that was currently in a battle with a familiar-looking girl off in the distance being the most crucial. Note to self: when I dispel, always listen to a pretty face. With that important task done, he was off towards the action. Leaping over the cliff wall and pushing wind chakra from his hands and feet to glide over. While he still couldn't fly, Naruto had taken to jumping over high ledges and using wind chakra to keep himself from becoming a smear on the ground. Many clones gave up their short existences to make that skill possible. It was honestly surprising how he didn't have a fear of heights because of it. Protecting 8 trigrams 64 palms. When he heard Team 8 had been sent out here to find this beetle, he was certain he would run into Kiba, Hinata, and the third member of Team 8. It appeared that this beetle was indeed worth what Pakin claimed it to be. Right now Hinata was fending off a swarm of bees while her 2 teammates were trapped in some sort of strange substance. What was really amazing though was Hinata herself. The technique she was using was difficult to see every one of her movements even with his heightened focus. From how the bees were being cut in half, she must have been sending out a small beam of chakra from her palm, almost like a blade. Adding intense flexibility and speed, and you come up with a jutsu capable of blocking most attacks. He wondered how it would match up to his Raisin shield. While it was impressive, it had difficulties facing large opponents like the giant bee that these 3 goons Team 8 was fighting were using. The difference in size and power was staggering as it knocked Hinata off the ground, sending her rolling and tumbling. She had definitely improved since he last saw her, but it wasn't enough. Alright Queen Bee. Kill the 3 of them. He sighed. 2 saves in less than a day. His friends really needed to get their act together. He was getting the feeling they shouldn't be doing any of this without him to watch them. Flickering in between Hinata and the giant bee, he charged up his attack. There was no need to show restraint. Defeat these idiots, find the beetle and dispel. Giant Rasengan. Of course the insect never really stood a chance against such a powerful attack, even with a sturdy exoskeleton. The ones controlling it didn't even see him appear before it either. Well, not until their insect came flying back towards them, sending all 3 of them crashing into the river next to them. Pretty sure there was a waterfall at the end of it. Oh well, they weren't his concern. The clone patted his hands together. Well, that takes care of that. No long pointless bullshit this time. Who are you? The shy voice of Hinata called out to him. The girl was always a weird one, and while she was nice and all, he never really got what her deal was. Seeing her right now, soaked in water and beat up, he could at least say she was still tough and could hold her own. Grinning, he took off his. This was always the fun part. The look of utter shock and complete disbelief at how awesome he had become. It was only natural after all. What? You don't recognize me anymore, Hinata? She stared at him for a moment longer. Then her pale eyes widened. Small stream of tears started pouring down her cheeks. She tried to speak but it came out as incoherent blubbering. If you're just going to cry you'll just make me look like an asshole, you know. No way, is that really you, Naruto? Kiba had broken out of that brown gunk and was now staring, well more sniffing, at him to try and discern if he was actually the said boy in question. There's no way, you smell too different to be him. Really? Perhaps your nose is just off. Hinata can obviously tell it's actually me and Shuko? Yes, Shuko over there can probably tell it's me as well. The clone huffed at how rude Kiba was. Sure, his adult cologne was potent, but for the one person who said his nose was so great he at least thought the dog boy would be able to at least pick up on a familiar scent. His grandfather did say the seal on the back of his neck wouldn't block his scent. That was the only reason why he trekked out here in the first place. The third member of Team 8 seemed to recoil, looking away from him. It's rude to get someone's name wrong. Why? Because as comrades and former classmates it's expected to have at least that amount of courtesy. The clone just sagged, wiping his ears out with his finger. Geez, you haven't changed at all since I've been gone, have you? Shino. Kiba started laughing at the scene. Wow, it really is Naruto. We went out trying to find a means to look for you and you turn up here. Yes, the Baikaku beetle. Did you guys happen to find it? It was amazing how off guard they all were. Without so much of a smidgen of doubt to his intentions, they pulled out the case that held the beetle. It was still an egg and appeared to need time before it hatched. The way Shino was carrying it made it seem like the whole thing would break at the slightest amount of pressure. Now all that was left was to get rid of it. The focal point was how? Too many options in a situation like this. He felt a tug on his sleeve. Hinata was still trying to talk to him as she continued to wipe away a slew of tears. She was literally the epitome of a hot mess right now. It was cute in its own way. A girl crying over him was one of the mystery powers that Sasami used rarely. So seeing this now he was largely immune. Is that so, Hinata? Well, I'm glad you had that looked at. The clone said, filling in words that most likely didn't match what the sobbing girl was trying to say. Kiba grabbed him by his collar, nearly making him smack the dog user on reflex. He may have been a clone, but you never ruffled a man's tailored suit. Hey, knock it off, you jerk. Do you know how hard things have been for her since you disappeared? We've all been worried sick. Plus you even have a bounty on your head now. Do you understand what that means, you giant dumbass? Ugh, don't remind me. I really need to see the guy in charge of that and get a readjustment. There's no way I'm worth so little. Kiba gripped his collar tighter. The level of volume in the dog boy's voice also increased significantly. What the hell are you talking about? The clone wasn't sure how much to say. Unlike Iruka, his friends were in a different circle of information. He already told Shikamaru everything they needed to know, but perhaps a little bit of context might add to their drive to challenge him. Pushing Kiba off, he smiled, giving his answer. Hopefully the original wouldn't be too mad when he dispelled. I'm saying that I am now a Gyuna. I am no longer the Leaf Village's Jinchuriki. What? What does that even mean? You're still not making any sense, Naruto. He shrugged. Sorry, but that's the only hint I'll give you. You'll need to figure the rest out yourselves. All three of your parents know the truth, I'll leave it up to you to get more information out of them. That answer had seemingly left the Inuzuka member for a loop. Akamaru yipped something and that seemed to placate the boy even further to a begrudging silence. So does that mean you're not returning with us then? Sadly not. I'm after something bigger than the title of Hokage these days. I just came here for that. He pointed to the glass container, which by happenstance of coincidence was making noise. The egg inside was beginning to crack and all attention from the three were diverted. It's hatching, Shino stated. We need something for it to smell, otherwise this trip will be a waste. Well, it's a good thing we still have Naruto's headband. You may have your reasons for not wanting to go back, Naruto, but I don't care. You don't just bail on the Leaf Village. Period. Smiling, the clone reached into his pocket for one of his secret weapons. As the beetle emerged and Kiba leaned in with an old sock that once belonged to him, he put his plan into motion. Well, I guess if you're sure, then I have no other choice than to sneak attack. What the hell is this stuff? Special chili powder I got from Grandma Sancho, he grinned holding the small spice container out. He had planned to use it in bombs but never really had the time. This worked just as well. With a flick of his wrist the pepper flakes landed smack dab on the Inyazuka's nose. Kiba's eyes quickly began to water as his body tensed up and Akua sneezed right on the beetle. Kiba, Hinata, and Shino were gaping as the beetle flew up and landed right on Kiba's nose. Mission accomplished. Tough break guys, he said, giving them a wave. Not all missions are successful though, so buck up and try harder next time. Naruto, you bastard. I don't care anymore. I'm pounding you into the dirt. The clone just shrugged off Kiba's bluster. Ha. Right. No offense, but even together the three of you couldn't beat me as I am now. If you want me to come back I would suggest getting a whole lot stronger. It seems like the three of you couldn't handle some nobodies from the hidden stone. We could have. They just caught us off guard. I'll have you know we've been training our butts off and even managed to defeat a Jonin. Wow, a single Jonin. I managed to go toe-to-toe with Orochimaru. Unless you guys can do that then. I guess you're out of luck. Just as Kiba was about to yell something else out, he held his hand stopping him. Sadly I'm out of time. In any case it was nice seeing you guys. Train hard because I might not be around to save you next time. Before dispelling he could vaguely hear Hinata trying to say something to him. Sadly the girl seemed a bit later to find her nerve. Perhaps next time they saw each other he could test that defensive jutsu she used firsthand. It really excited him. Menma was looking around for their leader as he had taken off a while ago. It was right in the middle of the barbecue he had them set up. A nice way to celebrate all the stuff they'd accomplished. To be honest, following Naruto around had been more than he hoped it to be. The younger blonde had a knack for finding trouble and people in need. Something he was more than happy to help solve. He just wished Naruto would be less flaky at times. Their leader was like the weather at times. Unpredictable and too hard to contain. Sasami let out another depressed sigh. She had been like this since Naruto took off. Well, actually she was upset ever since Naruto picked out his swimsuit. It was hard to understand Sasami most of the time. The girl seemed to border a line between sweet and violent when it came to Naruto. Don't look so down, little lady. The kid tried to hide it but I could tell he couldn't keep his eyes off ya, Sazanami said with a mixture of sincere comfort and amusement. The swordsman seemed to have fun teasing them. Although it was more so with Sasami and Naruto. Perhaps if he was more rambunctious then Sazanami would be more playful with him too. Well, they got on well enough and he didn't want to give the man any more trouble than he already had. Master! Where are you? Master! Hey you! Get off my house! Then there was the loon standing on rooftops crying out for Naruto at the top of his lungs. Hokushin, it was best just to remain courteous and leave it at that. The former Watari member became almost catatonic when Naruto vanished with Ranmaru. He was the one that was adamant about finding them, saying the entire thing was pointless if Naruto wasn't there. Well, the party was a bit dull without Naruto, so walking around, so going for a walk seemed like a good idea. Sadly, since Ranmaru and Naruto were the only ones with any sort of sensory abilities, finding them wasn't really an option. They would come back later after doing whatever it was they were doing. With the two of them, he doubted anyone could get the drop on them. Everyone stop. Hokushin jumped down with a panicked look on his face. We need to hide somewhere. Quickly. Hearing the sense of urgency, the four of them ducked in behind a building. This village was more of a patchwork of houses than an actual organized settlement. There weren't many places to hide. They stuffed themselves between a house and a small storage shed. It was cramped but offered very little visibility for them to be seen. What's the matter with you now? Sazanami muttered. Just shut up and keep your voices down, Hokushin hissed. No sooner had he said that they saw what he had been referring to. Flickering into the main road were several shinobi dressed in green flak vests. They had seen some of them occasionally when they went through Tanzaku town and Warem. Only small groups of 3 or 4, nothing too worrisome. Most never spared them a second glance in the large crowds. In a small place like this there were over a dozen of them running by. The atmosphere about them wasn't of casual travelers. They were looking for something, or someone. One of the ninjas was a scary-looking woman with wild brown hair and red face markings. She too wore a green flak vest and appeared to be the leader of the group giving out orders. At her side was a dog with dark fur. It had an eye patch and was missing an ear yet didn't seem any less dangerous. They were sniffing around and only more the briefest of moments he thought the pair were heading towards them. As it turns out they were more interested in the shed. Just barely could he feel movement inside the small wooden building. Someone was inside it. Given that Naruto was probably someone who would have easily slipped out by now, he had the feeling it was someone else inside. Boom! Just as the woman reached for the door, a loud explosion rang off in the distance. Their attention diverted, it now forced the pair to curse. Shit. Seems like this was a diversion. Let's go, Kuromaru. Right. They waited several more moments until the coast was clear, pushing out of the gap quickly in case they decided to come back. It must have been a common sight around here, as many of the villagers barely batted an eye at the search party. It only confirmed their worries about being too close to the Leaf Village. Alright, I think we've overstayed our welcome, Sazunami declared. Let's find Naruto and Ranmaru quickly and get out of this country. There were no words of disagreement on this. After the Land of Fire was a peninsula of small nations. Included in that was the Land of Forests. The sooner they reached the second hideout, the safer they'd be. They probably could have reached it by now if they didn't make so many stops. With this country filled with more populous settlements, it made sense for them to enjoy it while they could. Now though, it was time to go underground and gain strength. Before that though, Menma broke off from the others to reach for the storage door handle. He barely touched it before it slid open and a large figure pounced on him. Normally Menma was agile enough to evade such a thing, however this person seemed just as agile and quick. In no time at all he was laying on his back with a kunai pressed up against his throat. The full weight of a larger person bearing down on him. It was hard to see with the shadow of the person's face over him, but it appeared to be a man. Slowly more details came to him. The man had distinct short green hair, black, heavy-lidded eyes and no eyebrows. His outfit denoted someone who possessed ninja training. Although he looked more like a cornered animal right now. Banged up and bleeding from his forehead. Make a move and I slice his throat. Harm the boy in any way and you'll find my blade going through yours, Sazunami threatened. Just over his gaze he could make out the end of Sazunami's sword. The others were probably ready to tear this person to shreds for his sake. Something that was both pointless and against what he initially wanted to do. It's okay you guys. He's the one that the Leaf Ninja were after. He's just scared. Shut up. I've had enough of annoying brats lately. Hate to agree with him Menma, but the dangerous man doesn't seem to want your usual brand of charity. Menma frowned. Really? Are we not also trying to hide from the Leaf Ninja for similar reasons? Why fight when doing so will only draw them back? There was a small pause as he hoped his words had made some attempt to resolve this issue peacefully. As a rogue shinobi he was certain Naruto wouldn't have a problem with this. In fact he may even be amused by it. So in a typical Phocian of their leader he added his own spin on things. Deftly reaching into his pocket and pulling out a wad of cash. You seem like a good man down on his luck. As criminals ourselves it would be bad karma to fight someone who clearly needs help. He held up the cash to the man's face. Take it and hide somewhere. We won't breathe a word that you were here. He pulled off his most charming smile. He wasn't certain a man like this would go for it, but as Naruto put it, cash was a universal language. The blade was quickly removed as was the money in his hand. This mystery person jumped off him, keeping a distance from the rest of them. He didn't appear to take this as a sign of good faith as it was intended to be. Instead it just made the green-haired man annoyed enough to leave. Just stay out of my way or I'll kill you. That was all the guy said before jumping away into the forest. Well, he was a real piece of work, Sazunami muttered as he helped him up. Are you okay Menma? Sasami asked. I'm okay. Besides a bit of dirt and feeling slightly winded from being knocked on the ground he felt alright. Rather, it was good to see that it wasn't their presence the Leaf were looking for. As harsh as it sounded in his own mind, he hoped the money he gave the mystery man would help him get by long enough to serve as a distraction for them. He frowned at such a malicious thought. Perhaps Naruto's way of thinking was getting to him. Seems like we should get going now as well. Get going? Why? Seems like there's a lot of excitement going on. Coming around the bend was Naruto with Ranmaru at his side. They were both licking ice cream without a care in the world. Neither of them seemed particularly concerned with the high level of traffic running around. Mind explaining where you two took off suddenly? Sazanami asked. Naruto held out his hands. Getting ice cream, of course. It takes you 5 hours to get ice cream. It's really, really good ice cream. Here, I got one for you, Menma. Naruto offered a chocolate cone to him. He vaguely recalled telling the blonde that he liked that flavor. Sadly, Sasami, I didn't think to make shadow clones to carry more back, so you can have mine. I licked it a bit. I'm sure you won't mind. Naruto gave the girl a small wink as he handed over the vanilla cone. No, thank you, Naruto-kun. Ranmaru similarly gave a green one to Hokushin, while the pink one remaining in the small boy's hands seemed to be for himself. That left Sazanami still looking at Naruto with his arms crossed. It was actually funny to see, since there was still a bit of ice cream on the corner on his lips. Sorry, but since I knew you're so grown up, I figured you wouldn't want one. I'm afraid ice cream isn't really my thing. It would have been nice to be offered one at least. Naruto started to grin. His full teeth on display as he raised his hands up playfully and extended both his index fingers out. Well, apparently the ice cream salesman had something you might like and showed me how to do it. Touching Sazanami with his fingers, Naruto laughed as the swordsman let out a small yelp. Looking more closely, they could all see sparks. Ugh. Is that what I think it is? Sazanami muttered. Yup. Lightning style. By alternating the current between 2 points and building up friction, you create sparks. Rather simple in theory. Current, huh? Frown dissipating, it seemed like Sazanami was rather pleased with this new information. His grin was becoming eerily similar to Naruto's. Guess I'll have some practicing to do. Well, once we cross the border, we'll be in the land of forest and dash. I'm sorry, Naruto, but that's incorrect. He cut in, hearing the misunderstanding in their leader's confident declaration. Before the land of forests there is still one nation before it. It's small though, so it shouldn't take long to cross. Oh really? What's it called? He looked apprehensive about telling Naruto this. In fact, it was agreed upon that they would tell him until they were close to the border. Sasami and himself got a good sense of their leader's interests and peculiarities. Mainly things he liked to do, disliked, and absolutely hated. As strange as it sounded, Naruto had a hatred for only one thing. Something this land was famous for. Seeing Sasami give him a nod, he went for it. It's called the land of... As expected, the boy who cursed this thing with every fiber of his being turned rigid. Menma was sure this would have been one of those moments that a part of one's soul would slip out. Truthfully, it seemed kind of childish seeing Naruto act this way over a particular food group. It was honestly a struggle to even get the boy to eat them. Most of the time they had the chefs hide them in the meals. Even then, that didn't work at times. Naruto took several steps forward, looking like a shell of his former self. Really, kid? You're losing it over a place called the Land of Vegetables. Land of Vegetables? Don't be ridiculous. I've come this far and our goal is on the other side. Naruto looked to the sky, holding up both his arms. Sasami, and himself grimaced as they knew what Naruto was about to do. You hear me, God? I shall get past this accursed land before me. Not even my greatest foe shall stop me. In no time I will cross the land of evil. Menma was already mentally preparing himself for the reckoning this would bring. That's it for part 12. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.